going very slowly. That's good. Let's put out the call. Very good. Oh. Goody. Alrighty then. Now, good. I don't know if that. Yes, we're good there. Okay. Well, hello. Welcome back to TableTalk discussion and discourse. I, as always, am your host, Alejo, aka Radon95. How's it going, Shermans or Lemons? Howdy. Yeah. Unfortunately, at the moment, it is just me. Our illustrious co-host cannot make it just yet. Although, okay. Aiden will not be able to make it tonight, as he has a prior engagement that has sprung upon him, unfortunately. And Boo is going to be a little late just due to work. So, it's just me for a time. Very cool. But that's alright. I don't mind. So, before, of course, we get into tonight's topic, we're going to start with comments, as is per usual. And I don't think I have anything else to really talk about on my end, channel-wise. Let me think. Nope. Oh, that's right. I will be working on and getting tonight, the, what's it called? The episode, I think it's session 36 of Devils and Dice up, for patrons, and then again up for everybody else tomorrow around 4, because I haven't had time, because I'm busy now due to work and other engagements. But that is coming, so I apologize in advance, or I apologize for previous delays. But other than that, there isn't anything else to talk about at the moment, so let's get on to the comments. We only have one, and it is from Lux. So, let us read. From last week, we looked at Blades in the Dark. A neato system. There's definitely some stuff in there that we would change just due to how we are, but it is a neato looking system and a beloved one as far as I am aware. I don't see many people that dislike it. So Lux says, my immediate reaction to the very beginning of the first video was not positive. Saying that the game doesn't allow you to plan something in advance is not a selling point to me at all. Did it say you couldn't plan? I thought it just said that it took some of the stress out of planning due to the way that it worked. I actually don't remember off the top of my head. Sure, plans never survive first contact with the enemy is the saying, but it's not a waste of effort. You benefit from at least having a general idea of what each person is supposed to be doing. If the group just loses all cohesion as soon as the first thing doesn't go as expected, that's a problem with the group, and honestly something their characters would really need to work on if it were real, assuming they survived that first botched mission. The actual competent execution of a plan involves solving the unexpected problems as they come up and actively trying to keep it on track. If something threatens to seriously derail the plan, you fight back against it. You don't just immediately abandon the whole idea. Again, I think that is part of it. Again, we don't have the book in front of us. We don't have the actual PDF. We didn't have access to that. There is the site itself that I was showing off a little bit at the tail end of the stream. But I do believe, and I would expect, that there is, like, a little bit of actual, like, designating roles and stuff, because it does assume that you your team is intelligent in Blades in the Dark as far as it saying itself. And I assume there is some sort of divvying up of everything, right? But I agree, yes, the execution of it that is competent would be for solving those problems. You are correct. Again, I don't know if that is not a part of it, you know? Besides, what I would say is, I don't know if, like, it gives you those little things about the plans themselves, and then I assume you go with it as is. Like, you choose the plan and then figure out some more stuff with it. Again, I'm not entirely sure, but from the outside, it is kind of neat in that sense of, like, helping with analysis paralysis, if you will, in a way, of just giving you these categories that you can choose from. But I would have to look further in to really gauge whether or not it prevents you, or if it is just, like, there is more of a guideline. I'm not entirely sure. But as is most things, guidelines, you know, you can make anything your guideline and just change it as is. Because I expect that we would definitely want to try to plan things ourselves, too. Anyway. Of course, the plan might get completely derailed despite the group's efforts. Hopefully because the dice proclaimed it, and not just because the DM forced that outcome. Because that's bad DMing if so. But the fact that a plan fails doesn't mean it would have been better to go in with no knowledge and no concept of what needed to happen. If your group does that, it deserves to stumble into whatever pitfall was waiting for them. I've been in a few groups that operated like that, and I wish the DM would punish them for it. When that kind of thing is allowed to slide, I feel like we're just being handed a success instead of earning it. That's fair. I don't know exactly where this is coming from. Again, is this off the assumption that it doesn't let you plan? I'm not sure. Though I'll note that logic only applies to advanced operations, like some kind of heist or infiltration mission or whatever. If we're just talking about basic combat or a kick-in-the-door dungeon raid, the characters already have their roles in the party predefined, so planning isn't generally necessary for that and could be detrimental. What you need a plan for is when you have a problem that can't be solved just by charging in headlong, which is, I assume, most of that system. Moving on through, I see that the system deals with this by having players plan in reverse. Well, at least that takes a currency and tells me that the characters aren't just flying by the seat of their pants all the time. But still, the currency is basically plot armor. Maybe that's an uncharitable way of looking at it, but I don't see a way to deny that it's true. Yeah, we have issues with the flashbacks. That is true. I suppose it contributes to being able to run the game like a movie, but honestly, the more I see of systems designed for that purpose, the less I like that concept. As a player, I'd rather you just put me in a scenario and let me make my way through it in real time, and that's also how I want to run a game as a DM. An RPG is not a movie, and trying to make it one doesn't work for me. Sure, that's fair enough. On a positive note, I do like that consequences are hardwired into the setting. Not that I have any trouble adding consequences to a game, but some DMs apparently do. At the very least, any work the writers want to take off my load is purely beneficial to me. Oh, absolutely. Preach that. Fucking making it easier on a DM or GM or whatever you want to call them. Oh my god, it's so nice. Anyway, it's good to make sure that the characters aren't more powerful than the setting. True. As for the second video, I honestly didn't follow it very well. My main thought was that it made opening a box seem pretty complicated, which is weird since I was under the impression that this was supposed to be a rules-light game. I'm not saying that's bad necessarily, but in the supposedly rules-heavy D&D 3.5, you would just roll your open lock check and be done with it. I guess that by rules light, they mean character creation is simple, but there were so many situational factors going on into this one action that I feel like I'd have to open the book for everything I tried to do. Oh, excuse me. And I wouldn't be able to just write down all the bonuses I have and total them up on my character sheet because they're too dependent on this specific situation. If I really wanted to avoid opening the book, I'd have to turn my character sheet into a book unto itself, if this one example is anything to judge by. But this is more a criticism of the video than the system, because for all I know, it might be simpler than the video makes it look, and my not being able to follow it doesn't help. Yeah, the second video was definitely less comprehensive, I think, in many ways. It seemed very short for something that it needed to expand upon more. Furniture stores hate him because of the one weird this one weird secret. It's Steely. Hey guys, hey Steely, how's it going? Welcome back. I love it. Table flipping menace. Tangentially, the idea of a 5-minute video claiming to teach you how to play an entire system seems inherently flawed to me. This is obviously how to do one particular thing in Blades in the Dark, and not even a particularly interesting thing. From watching it on its own, I would still have no idea what an actual session of the game would be like. Any given system has an entire book about how to play it. So, I would say that if there is a single bit of information that is just essential to a game and everything relies upon that, if that's the case, explaining that is the way that you make it so that everything else makes sense, right? Learning that kind of thing would then facilitate the ease of learning everything else. Obviously, I honestly can't remember the second video that we watched last week, unfortunately. I wish I could. It seemed like it was kind of going over the same thing, like one part of the same video, or the same thing in the first video that we watched that was like 13 minutes long, that explained far more than that second video. So there is something to be said about it being short and trying to explain something to you, but I think it can be done. It's just I don't think that video did it very well. But that's more on the video, really, like said before. So overall, these videos didn't sell me on Blades in the Dark, but I'd have to try it for myself before I could really judge it. Though I can tell on a conceptual level that I probably wouldn't want to run it. I'd play it if someone else wanted to run it, and if I happen to feel like playing the appropriate type of character at the time, but it's not really the kind of game I run. Fair enough, yeah. Though in all honesty, I'd rather just do this kind of thing in D&D or Pathfinder. I'd make a bard or a rogue, specialize them in social skills, use those to infiltrate the target, and gather the information I need to come up with a plan. If people have a recurring problem with their plans falling apart as soon as they try to enact them, it's probably because they're not gathering the information they need beforehand, or just throwing something together based on assumptions. Sure. I didn't mean for this comment to turn out so negative, but it just kind of worked out that way. Anyway, I could say more, but I'm super addicted to Stellaris right now. Good game. So I won't launch into a treatise on the arts of espionage and thievery at this time. Just gather your information, try to eliminate assumptions, and keep the plan together if you can. Also read your player's handbook and get vaccinated. Good. Yes. Hey, Tyler. What's happening? I'm just reading the comment on the last video. That's it. We're not started yet, but now we are, basically. Yeah, I don't know. Overall, the setting is what interests me more. The rules themselves, I like some things, I disliked other things. If I were to read it, then I would have, like, the full thing, then I'd probably have a better idea. Definitely those videos where... the first video definitely got me more interested just because of it explaining the setting a bit more and some things like that, but other than that, you know. Well, that's a massive comment, Jesus Christ. That's Lux for you. That's what he do. But yeah. So, yeah, let's move on from that. So, today, we are talking about dungeons. Specifically, mistakes when designing them. Now, this is the thing that I'm kind of hoping to learn from a bit, because as is, also, hi, it's me, most indecisive friend, can't hang around for long, sadly. No worries, dude. You're fine. You can go and watch the thing later. It's cool. If you want, of course, if you are so inclined. But, like I was saying, yes, so, I'm hoping to learn a little bit from this, because one, I don't necessarily do dungeons, right? I've designed, and by that I mean I've heavily stolen from dungeons that were already crafted in D&D. I took third-party or first-party dungeons, and I would kind of change them a little bit, or change what's going to happen because of it, or change some enemies inside it, you know, all that kind of shit, right? And you know, you can classify some things that aren't just like, hey, this is a dungeon, this is where the evil thing lives. You can classify a run through a house as a dungeon, because you can go through multiple floors and potentially there's loot in some places and enemies in other places, or, you know, like, a dungeon is very broad, I think, in the sense of what you can make a dungeon, right? Hey Royd, how's it going? There are definitely some games that could be explained in their most basic form very briefly. Dungeon World is a good example of that, being very freeform and narrative. That's fair, yeah. But yes, so dungeons aren't really my thing. I like more of that open world kind of thing. And if people want to go into a place that could be considered a dungeon, then I'll have something hopefully prepared. If not, I'll find something that I can do prepared. Or I can go on a handy dandy like site that auto-generates dungeons for me, like randomly, so that I can work with that. Actually, I did do that. I did do that for a dungeon and then used it as a template for one that had a lot of stuck doors, and you'll hear it if you've been listening for a while. You've heard about, I think we've talked about it, the stuck door tale of, or the tale of my players, that being Aiden, Boo, Brogan, and our friend Mike, going through and encountering stuck doors, not locked doors, just stuck doors, of which they had no idea how to work with them, and then burning one down and breaking a few spears on it, and, you know, all that kind of stuff. But that was the reason why I even used stuck doors, is because of this random dungeon generator thing. And I think it was called Donjon. I think that's the name of it. You can search it on the internet. And yeah, it was the reason why I used those, and I haven't designed a dungeon since, really, because people usually stay in the overworld, quote unquote, talking to people in towns and stuff, and really just going to caves and shit. Dungeon is hella useful. Yup, that is true. But so like using that as your like guideline or whatever. Hey, Juice, how's it going? Using that as my guideline, I could go through and make a dungeon that way, I think. Because designing something flat out is just something that I don't have experience in doing, and I don't really do so, you know? Just stopping in for 5 minutes? Cool, dude, cool. Time yourself. Yeah, no, so let's get into it. Today, we are going to start with this video from Dungeon Dudes. Ironically, they made a video called 5 Dungeon Design Mistakes in Dungeons & Dragons 5e. And I'm very interested to see what these design mistakes are, if they are indeed mistakes, or how we could potentially fix them, yeah? Off the tops of our heads first, and then see what they have to say. Because, you know, maybe we'll learn something, maybe we'll figure some stuff out, you know, whatever. But yeah, so let's get started.
Greetings, my name is Monty Martin.
And I'm Kelly McLaughlin.
And we are the Dungeon Dudes.
Hello.
Welcome to our channel where we cover everything Dungeons & Dragons, including advice for players and guides for Dungeon Masters.
We upload new videos on Tuesdays and Thursdays, so please subscribe to our channel so that you never miss an episode.
This week's episode of our show has actually been sponsored by our very own Dungeons of Drakkenheim Kickstarter campaign, which is now live through to the end of July.
We've partnered with Ghostfire Games to bring this campaign to life as a 5th edition module for characters level 1 to 13.
I'm not gonna like skip past this because this is their own thing that they made. And I respect the hustle, dude. I hope they did well with this Kickstarter. I don't know when this video came out, actually. Let's check really quick. Let me go to the... There you are. Let's go to the video itself. Let's go to the... Oh, no, that's this. Whoops. That's not the right thing. Oh, well. I can search it. Dungeon Dudes... Dungeon mistakes. I don't want that to sound like I'm calling them mistakes, by the way. This was only 5 days ago? Oh my god. Crazy. Hey, Draco Kraken. You missed a comment, and then the very start. They're plugging their thing, so we'll give them the time. Because they made this, I think. That's right. Read a comment on a previous video. True.
If you've watched any live stream shows and been inspired by the mix of dark fantasy and cosmic horror and wanted to run a campaign of your own in our world, well, now is your chance. We have taken all of the original notes from the first season of Dungeons & Drakenheim, put these into this book, polish them all up into a complete campaign that you can run with your very own group, where your player characters can interact with the factions, explore all of the ruined locations in
Man, that sounds really cool.
and decide the fate of the city for yourself.
Not only do we have a large amount of brand new adventure sites for you to explore, but we also have new spells, magic items, contaminated monsters, and rules for the Eldritch Contamination to add dire situations to the world of Drakenheim for your players.
With over 4,000 backers so far, we have blown through our original funding goal and have now been able to achieve so many stretch goals.
That's crazy.
We have added never-before-seen locations that didn't make it into the original show into this book for you to explore. So if you head on over to the links below or visit Drakenheim.com, you can find all the details on the Kickstarter and how you can get your copy.
All right, I gotta go check it out then. Hold on. Drakenheim. Oh, it's the first thing that comes up. Oh my god. By Dungeon Dudes. Yeah. No, this is their thing. Funded in 5 minutes. Whoa! That's great. Shit, they are super over their pledge goal. It says 17 days to go. Man, this thing sounds awesome. I didn't pay attention to their, playthrough of Drakenheim, because they had an actual play on their channel, but yo, that's great for them. Good on you guys. Absolutely. Alright, anyway.
And honestly, a huge thank you to everybody that has backed so far. The support that we have seen for this project is absolutely incredible, and we are so thrilled to have been able to blow past so many of our goals. So with that, let's take a look at this week's episode.
So one thing that's occurred to us is we got a show and a book called Dungeons of Drakenheim. We're called the Dungeon Dudes. And we actually haven't done too many episodes about how to make a dungeon. For
Those
D&D.
jerks.
So today, we've compiled some of our tips together, and we are going to talk about 5 common dungeon design mistakes that we've made.
Yes.
So that you can avoid them when you're designing your own dungeons for your own campaigns.
Monty and I have learned a lot building dungeons for our players and watching them foil everything that we've put in front of them. Gotcha. So from that, we've compiled our 5 top mistakes that we've made that we assume most people out there have made as well when getting started with designing dungeons. So how can you make your dungeons more challenging, interesting, dynamic, and fun at your game table?
There's a
Okay, I'll stick around for a little longer. Oh. Alright, jeez.
lot to discuss, so let's get rolling.
So one thing to note is that a lot of the mistakes that we list today actually lend themselves to each other. You're going to want to take all of them into account when you're designing your dungeons. Okay. And one of the first things that we're going to start off with is the idea of two-dimensional thinking. This is a very common mistake, and a lot of people do this when designing dungeons. You might grab a piece of paper and start drawing out your dungeon, not realizing that most dungeons exist in 3 dimensions.
Oh, okay, I see. You twisted my arm. That's true. Okay, so absolutely, this actually makes a lot of sense, being a super mistake. I can definitely say that thinking about a dungeon itself, I definitely have thought of it as not necessarily not 3-dimensional, but definitely one level, if you will, right? Having it be a single thing that goes, A to B, really. Well, so not even that, I guess. That's too simplistic. I guess it's more the fact that verticality exists, right? If you're in an actual cave, there is like things like natural formations. There could be pools that you might come across just due to little bits of moisture that have, like the humidity in the cave or something. I don't know how caves work. I don't know how nature is. But you know what I mean. Things that might be naturally occurring inside of such a thing. Or, like I said with the house thing, maybe it's not just the house, you also have the city you have to worry about. Like, if you're in this house that is your dungeon, quote unquote, the things that you do inside it, do they affect the house itself? Do they affect the outside of the house, like the actual town? Do people come into this place because of what you're doing here? Or is it more of an abandoned situation? Or is it something that they're like, things happen all the time there? I assume that's what they mean by this. If not, then I just expounded upon something that isn't what they're talking about. But let us see.
This is a bit of a product of the fact that if you did it old school style, you're probably used to drawing your dungeons on a piece of graph paper like this.
Sure.
Or maybe you're using a dungeon design application to use with a virtual tabletop like Dungeon Draft, or you're working in Roll20 or Fantasy Grounds or one of the other great virtual tabletops where you get this top-down view of the grid. And so even if you're not playing on a grid, but you're designing dungeons in this way, working on a flat plane makes you think of the world in a squished-down format. And with many virtual tabletops, in fact, it's actually really hard to represent the world in 3 dimensions. If you want to have a room that has, say, a balcony or multiple levels, or you want to have the outside of a tower, this is a really easy mistake to make because the tools that we use when we draw dungeons draw 2-dimensional things. They don't think about things in a 3-dimensional way. And I really didn't realize how limiting this actually was until I started working with terrain and miniatures. And I think that as much as people like to say that theater of the mind can be very freeing, in a lot of ways, theater of the mind, still you work with a piece of paper to draw out your layers and don't necessarily think, oh, things are 3-dimensional. There's a whole...
Well, okay. Well, no, I have some contentions with that. I wouldn't say that theater of the mind makes you limited to a piece of paper. Theater of the mind is literally you don't use paper. You're just, everything that you're talking about is in your head, you know? Is that not what you do? Because, like, when I think of theater of the mind, I think of legitimately just, hey, we're talking about, like, I'm gonna describe you this scene. You're gonna be asking questions to me, absolutely, because you want to understand the scene better. But I describe to you, we're in a valley, yes? We're in a valley that is going between these 2 ginormous mountains, right? Does that make you think that we're on something flat? No, it starts making you think, oh, there are mountains to my sides here. We're in a, let's say the valley itself is 60 feet across or so. Now you have a reference there. And then it's like, and then the mountains stretch up and you can see they're hundreds and hundreds of feet up, right? I'm not going to use the piece of paper to jot that down, really. If we're going pure theater of the mind, as far as my conception of the words, my understanding of the words, we're using that to then paint the scene itself in 3 dimensions, right? Or am I off in that? Do other people think of this as just, whatever you're saying is part of the like, whatever you're describing is now going to be written down or something? I don't know. Theater of the mind means just that to me. Everything is based on verbal or written description. You wouldn't have a map or whatever. It's as you describe. Yeah, that's what I would think. Because usually, if I tell you, if I write something down, I guess, let's say I draw it out on a piece of paper or on my battle mat, whatever, then I have to, if somebody asks, well, how high is this? Then I have to then, write that down on a side note or something on that piece of paper in order for you to now see that. But if I describe to you, like, instead, let's say the house. Let's use the house, for example. I draw you a square, and then I put a table inside, right? And I say, okay, this house, this part here is like 10. This floor of the house is 10 feet up, right? We'll say that the first floor, the walls are 10 feet up, right? In order for me to convey that on the 2-dimensional plane, I have to write that next to it. 10 feet walls, 10-foot walls, right? Somebody asks, if I get on the table, how high am I? I go, okay, you're like 2 feet up. You're like 3 feet up off the ground now. So you're 13 feet up, right? And then I have to write that somewhere, or you now have to think about that when you get on the table, if that's going to factor in, all that kind of shit. Whereas with Theater of the Mind, I can describe to you the walls themselves. I don't draw this out. I just say, you see a house in front of you. The walls themselves look to be 10 feet or so, maybe. Definitely too high for you to jump to get to the second floor, right? There's a window that's on the side here that is about 3-4 feet up off the ground. You could probably get to that. And like, it really, like, if I were to draw that window, it would be there, and I'd have to label, like, maybe, that, like, just so you can get the measurements and stuff. But when I'm just going Theater of the Mind, when I'm just describing this stuff to you, it's taking all of these things to account. I grabbed onto Tabletop Sim real early because it's as easy as Roll20 to use. I've never liked the look of it. I can say that Tabletop Sim has trained me to build vertically. Built an entire portcullis to defend. Hell yeah, dude. I think they're overthinking it. They might be, I think, yeah. Theater of the Mind needs no visual, right? Yes. There's something to be said for not thinking in 2D all the time, but yeah, I think we're all clear on Theater of the Mind. Yeah, exactly. Like, quite literally, I think that this is just the wrong way to view Theater of the Mind.
Whole world out here. We can really explore things in a different way.
By thinking in 3 dimensions, you also open up many pathways, which give character choice and character agency a really important spotlight when they're navigating the dungeon. Mm-hmm. By working in 3 dimensions, if you have a ruined castle, if floors have collapsed in certain areas, if there's ruined chimneys and drawbridges and windows and balconies, these are all avenues and pathways that characters can move and navigate through in really interesting ways. Rather than just moving room to room to room, they can move up and down and over and across. And this gives more choice to your players rather than just, all right, you go into room 1 and you deal with what's there, and now you're moving into room 2. When they can see and think about the environment in 3 dimensions, they're going to start thinking and planning schemes and ways to navigate around their enemies.
So, not to cut them off, but they've kind of moved past that point. I think as well they have a little bit of like, hey, from that example, they said, oh, you go to room 1, you clear everything in, and you go to room 2. Obviously, that might be a gross oversimplification of what the actual DM would say, but if you're in that kind of stage, then you gotta say there is a need for the DM to describe things better, it is very much up to the DM to describe what's going on, and also it's on the players to ask questions. I think that's very important with anything. Like, if you want to know something, you need to ask about it. The DM might not remember everything, and that's just fine, right? There's definitely, like, whenever I DM, I'm gonna forget like 16 different things that I had thought of the other day about this one room, right? I'm gonna forget, personally, I forget like senses a lot of the time. Like, I'll tell you what you see, and I can tell you, stuff that you hear, but like smells or, I guess the feelings that you can like feel with your feet, or whatever, like the humidity of the air maybe you can feel, all that kind of stuff I'm gonna forget. And so maybe I would then need somebody to prompt me, because otherwise I'm gonna forget that, and then later on I'll have this moment of like, oh right, you also feel that it's really warm in here, and that's uncharacteristic of like the space that you're in or something, because that's happened to me a bunch where I've forgotten something that I thought was important to describe about a room, and then it helps. Or like sometimes I'll forget that there's a window or something like that, like the description matters in that instance. And that will help you a lot with your understanding of 3 dimensions, as is something that I agree that this is very important and that you should do. So describe things, I guess.
Or get the their enemies that maybe weren't apparent to them in a 2-dimensional setting.
Yeah, oftentimes we see a lot of dungeons, even many of the dungeons in the D&D starter sets and in the published adventures, where the dungeon is basically, here is the stairs down from the surface, and then you go room, 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 room. And this ignores the fact that, what if the players were like, okay, this dungeon is underground, we're going to bust out the shovels and picks and try to break through the ceiling. Or we're going to try to dig through the walls. And when you create a environment that is above ground, like a castle or a tower or a fortress, you realize that there's a lot of ways to get into that environment that are not just the front door. The players can climb up the walls. They might be able to break through the windows. There might be more than one doors. If you even think about, many people's homes, most houses have a front door and a back door, and they have windows, and those are all possible ways to get in.
True.
You could even go down the chimneys. Now, what this does mean is that it does make things a little bit harder to predict.
The other really important thing about thinking in 3 dimensions as a dungeon master is that if you didn't think in 3 dimensions, there's a good chance that your players might. And if they do, and you weren't prepared for it, but there's no reason why you shouldn't answer their questions. If they get to the dungeon and they say, where are the windows? And you're looking at your map going, oh yeah, the building would have windows. Why didn't I think of that? Or is there a chimney? And you have a fireplace that you made, but you didn't think of where the chimney entrance was. Well, then you now have a problem where you're starting to have to improv ideas and trying to create it on the spot.
Sure.
But if you've pre-thought of the 3-dimensional aspects, you can then answer those questions more readily.
Yes, that is true. Thinking about things beforehand will make you more prepared. Absolutely. But I also think that you should leave yourself open to the fact that you will not think of everything. That is definitely going to be the case. Some players are going to be way more questioning on a lot of different things, right? Some people want more detail than others. And those that do, you should be prepared that you need to improvise occasionally. And I don't think it's a bad thing if you need to improvise. I think it's actually very good to help you kind of understand. And we've talked about this before, right? Where you go, hey, okay, that's a great question. Give me a second to think about that. I need a moment, right? Like, let me just think about this real quick, okay? And usually, at least with our group, with Devils and Dice, we're just like, yo, yeah, that's fine. We'll just hang out here. It's cool. Whatever. Because we're comfortable with it and we don't give a shit. Like, we're here to have fun, and if it takes a little longer for us to keep going, then that's fine. It's not like and we joke about it with Boo all the time, but we're like, bad DM, right? You didn't have this specific thing that we had just thought of that you didn't think of prepared. Bad. No. You should be totally open to the fact that you're not going to think of anything. Hey, Pizza Funk. How's it going? I have to say that as a player, I tend to think more 2D than I should when I'm using something like Roll20, and I'm very concentrated on the map. That is fair. That is absolutely fair. I can understand that. I would say that I'm more often also in the same space if I see a map in front of me, but I also like it just for like visual reference, just to see that kind of stuff. I wish I had terrain more readily available and like able to be used, or something that was more 3-dimensional, just to like illustrate that shit, right? It'd be super useful. So many times the player has brought up something like that, and I thought about it and gave them an answer. Literally nothing is wrong with that. Yeah, absolutely. That's the thing. I understand, and I like the idea of pre-planning. You can plan as much as you want. Take all the time you need. If you don't want to take any time to plan something, that's fine. You just have to realize that you're going to be improving a lot. And if you're good at improv and you're cool with that, like No-Net-Ones, our friend Brogan, he's really good at improv. That's his thing. Like, whenever he runs a thing for us, he improvs that shit most of the time. So, like, that's totally fair. If you're good at that shit, then do it. But this need of everything to be prepared is good to have as a precaution to maybe also get you in that mindset of 3D verticality, things that are underneath, like all that kind of shit. But I also think that you again should prepare for your inevitable need to improv, because somebody's going to ask you a question that's you just weren't prepared for. It's going to happen. Also, I do want to also stress, like, they said that thinking in 3D does lend yourself to having things be more unpredictable. And as someone who uses a lot of sandbox stuff, who very much goes, you guys are making the story, I want to help you guys with your story, right? Like, I want you to understand your own goals. I might have something in the background later, but for now, let's see what your goals are as characters, as a party, what matters to you, let's go, right? That unpredictability is good to me, because it makes it so that I then have to think about, and I have to keep on my toes a bit of, like, what I have prepared or what I could prepare in that moment, right? To work off of my very basic framework that I have for my worlds. Some people might not like that, and that's fair. I guess prepare as much as you can, like they're saying. And again, nothing wrong with that. But just remember, improv. It's just kind of part of the game.
Where are the windows, the chimney? Where are the extra entrances? Can they break through a hole in the wall up on the top of the roof?
I also want to say, obviously, let's try not to, like, overthink it, right? Some things you don't have to worry about, right? In the moment, you can worry about some things, but beforehand, you don't have to over prepare. Like, there's a good thing to preparing, but don't go so far that you're worrying about, like, every atom of this dungeon that you're going for. Don't stress yourself out, right? There's no need to stress yourself out. People are gonna have fun. It's gonna be great, regardless of how it goes. Most of the time, people are gonna have fun. They're gonna figure it out, and they're gonna have fun. So try to have some fun with it too.
Those are very important things to consider, and multiple entrances, multiple exits, and multiple points for the characters to ask questions about and engage with means that if you've thought of those, you're more prepared as a dungeon master for the shenanigans your players are going to pull.
This is where the architecture of your dungeon and your adventure structure and your encounter design all start to overlap with each other, because not only are you making the whole environment and the adventure more interesting, but you're also creating more opportunities for more interesting combat encounters too.
This also brings in the idea that it really is okay to have offshooting rooms that are dead ends, even loops or different corridors that lead to different locations.
Yes.
You can have a non-linear dungeon by thinking in 3 dimensions and designing ways that navigation can flow seamlessly through the dungeon in multiple ways.
I can also imagine that that can be annoying to some people, right? It depends, right? It depends on your group. But I can imagine seeing, I can imagine seeing some people, like, being annoyed that the places have these dead ends or that they have looping things. Obviously, if you know your players, you're not going to do that too much, right? You don't want to make it linear, of course, but you don't want to make it so that they waste their time, quote unquote. It really depends. D&D is a game of improv. At the end, you can't plan everything, so have a good time. Yes, exactly. But yeah, so I really like the idea of having a lot of, like, things that either loop back or have dead ends or something, because then you have stuff like where you go through somewhere that leads back to where you've been and you go, oh shit, I've come this far. Some people might look at that and go, oh shit, I'm here again. Right? This isn't the way to go. But it's also, for me at least, it's like, oh, this is a route back here if I ever need it. I guess in that way, it depends on the person. But I kind of like also having dead ends, because it's like, okay, we don't have to worry about anything here. Maybe this is a place that we could hole out, or defend from if we need to. It starts sparking my tactical slash, just all that kind of like brain activity of just maybe this is going to be useful later. I don't know.
A great way to put your mind into three-dimensional thinking is that instead of drawing your map simply in 2 dimensions on your graph paper, draw a side view of your dungeon, or even get some isometric graph paper and draw an isometric style map of your dungeon. It's a fun thought exercise and will really open your mind into the way your dungeon is more dynamic.
Isometric graph paper? That's a thing? I don't know that. What is that? Hold on. I gotta look at it. I apologize. Isometric graph paper? What does that look like? Images. Oh, okay. Hold on. It's made in such a way that you can actually do something like that. Okay. It is a thing. Yeah, no, I'm looking at it. Hold on. 2 seconds. 2 seconds. I'll just pull up this image. You can easily use regular graph paper to make isometric maps, though. Yeah. Oh, I imagine so. Yeah. Hold on. I just want to show an example. I'll just pull up the first thing in Google Images here. Open image in new tab. There we go. This shouldn't be too hard to see. It's gonna be weird, but basically this, right? It is shaped in such a way that it looks like it's isometric. I like that, actually. I like the way that looks. That looks cool. Anyway, neat. I didn't know that was a thing. I've learned something today that I might forget tomorrow. Here we go. But I also agree, by the way, before I continue again, I also agree that the drawing things as a profile view, that would definitely help you with, like, if it's hard for you to conceptualize this, because for me it doesn't seem too hard to then keep track of what is 3D. At least that's me personally, if you're using like graph paper or something,
So moving.
Hold on. Okay, Boo is almost ready. Cool. Don't mind that link in the background. That was last week's pop-out chat. Nice. Okay, here we go.
From this topic, one of the things that we love to get inspiration of when we are designing dungeons are all the video games that we've played. Okay. Between Kelly and I, we have played so many classic dungeon crawlers, computer RPGs, and much, much more. And oftentimes a great way to start planning an adventure is to just think back to some of those memorable levels from your favorite video games and start using those as a template. The only problem here that you really want to make sure that you avoid is video game logic. Because the rules and constraints that exist in video games are not necessarily present in a game of Dungeons and Dragons.
That's true.
Although video games are ripe with inspiration, and there's a lot that you can take away from them. Your favorite puzzles, your favorite dungeon designs, and honestly, a lot of three-dimensional thinking happens in video games. But when you get into the limits of video games, something like the Resident Evil series, a personal favorite of mine, is often filled with puzzles. And most of those puzzles involve a door that has multiple pieces that you need to find throughout the dungeon and put them in the right place to open the door. The problem is, if you design a puzzle like that, and the next thing you know, there's a barbarian who's like, well, this is a wooden door, correct? And I have a giant axe, correct? And even if it's a magical door and your wizard says, okay, well, I have pass wall or teleportation or any other number of spells that can bypass the door. Doors are surprisingly easy to get around in Dungeons and Dragons.
That also just sounds like poor planning on your part in the sense of your design for that particular thing. I'm not trying to be rude or mean or anything, but like, I would assume account for stuff like that when you design it, because obviously if you're going, your party at this point, right? Like you as the dungeon master should know who everybody's going to be playing. what their capabilities are, basically. Like, even if you don't know exactly what abilities they'll take or whatever, you should know what they can do. Not if they're made of stone, but who would do that? Right, true. Well, so, like, even so, in that case, if you want to make it so that they are going to do your puzzle, you make it so that it's worth it, 1. 2, you make it so it's not that easy to just bypass, right? You again, you know your abilities of your players, so you go, hey, my wizard can, by the way, teleport is random if you don't know the actual, like, point. But my wizard knows teleport, let's just say, and he knows the other side somehow. Because he's never been there before, and that's why they're getting there. It doesn't work. But if he knows, so let's say dispel magic. Okay, easy enough. It's too high of a spell, or they can roll for it, and if they actually do it, then fuck it, let them have it. Fine, whatever. At that point, you can just go, fuck, well, that was just really lucky. I guess you get that, right? If you could also put in a contingency of the next door isn't magical, but it's also hard to get through. You can really, you have to plan for that. Definitely with something like this, planning is so necessary, right? If you want to dissuade them just brute forcing it, then usually you gotta figure out what your party is really up for in that case beforehand. You go, are they the type of people who want to do a puzzle? Or does that bore them? Or does that make them angry? Or does that just make them think that they're going to waste their time? You got to know your players at that point. But again, to deter maybe the barbarian, you go, it's a steel door. It's made of metal. It's made of iron, not steel, maybe. It's definitely going to scratch up your axe or something. Or you go, maybe you could bust it off its hinges, though you think that, or sorry, you might be able to bust it off your hinges. It could hurt. It will hurt, but you could try, right? Give them the opportunities if they're asking about them. Absolutely allow them to. Maybe penalize them. Maybe, like, imply a penalty somehow, like I just did, of like, that might hurt a lot, right? You're not exactly spelling it out. You're giving them a but you're also giving them that whole, are you sure you want to do that? Sorry, John Cena meme. Are you sure about that? But it seems like you need to plan that out a bit more, and maybe even reward them if they can do it in a way that's even more clever than what you came up with. We talked about this with Juice before, a while ago now, but for us at least, we don't usually like come up with solutions. We come up with problems, and we go, all right, figure it out, and then they come up with a solution, and you go, yeah, that works, sick. And then they go, man, you planned it like that? And you go, yup. It's just a good piece of advice, right? I think it's better to just go, yeah, you got it. You can have some ideas, obviously. It's not bad to just, think of a couple that might be easy to come up with for anybody. But, like, just let them do it. They'll figure it out. And if they don't, maybe it's a little difficult. I don't know.
So this amazing puzzle that you designed, where you have to go all the way down the left wing and fight a combat encounter and get one piece of the key, and then the right wing where you have to deal with a deadly trap and get the other piece of the key. Well, now they just broke down the door and bypassed half your dungeon.
Now, of course, it is possible to design things in your dungeons like anti-magic fields, or areas that are warded with private sanctum that block teleportation,
yeah,
or doors that are made of adamantium and completely indestructible.
You've already just solved your problem. Okay, let's go. What are you gonna say that's the but?
Watch out for adamantium doors, because as soon as the players get past them, they might try to drag them back to sell all that adamantium, by the way. Players can get up to a lot of shenanigans, going insofar as the previous example of breaking out the mining picks and dynamite, if they want to. And sometimes, I remember an example from one of our own campaigns where, Kelly, you had designed this amazing haunted mansion and expected us to go in the front door, and I went back to town and got a ladder.
Yes.
Yeah.
If your dungeon can be undone by the use of a ladder, you need to rethink your dungeon design. And that's very important.
Well, okay, we'll get to that. So much of their argument has been, what if they do this thing you didn't plan for? Am I the only one who says, awesome, roll for it, and love to see my players try to trip me up? No, absolutely. That's my whole point, right? Because then you go, okay, so I've designed this dungeon. Let's take their haunted mansion, for example. What is in the windows? If they get into that room, what are they encountering, right? Just because they bypassed half of your dungeon, quote unquote, right, doesn't mean that it's over. You can do something with that. Let's say I design this haunted mansion that I'm like, hey, you guys are going to go through the front door. I assume this because we're all human beings and we love using doors. My rogue in my party goes, I want to climb through the window. I like that window up on the left there. And I go, okay. And I look at my dungeon and I go, into my brain, I go, well, it looks like if you go through that window into that dungeon, because in my brain I sound way cooler than I am. Because if you go through that window into that dungeon, you're going... I'm not going to do that. You're going to encounter this ghost. Oh, and maybe this ghost is going to, like, try to get you out of this house because he doesn't like anybody coming inside. It's his home. He died here. This is where he is forever. And, like, maybe they'll try to convince the ghost to go away or let them through. Or maybe they'll fight the ghost. I don't know, right? Like, use that as an advantage, and maybe even... you could do some quote-unquote shenanigans in your dungeon if you really, really, really want them to go through the first floor. You could have it be so that this is the moment where they go through, and it's cheap. Don't get me wrong, this is cheap. But if you really don't have a better way, make them fall through the floor or something, get them to where you want them to be somehow that might be contrived, but hopefully makes sense enough for them to go, okay, this isn't just the DM going, fuck you, go to the first floor, right? Maybe we go, okay, the ghost says, hey, I'm gonna run to Walmart, have a good night, see you, Juice, have a good time at Walmart. See you later. We'll have you on soon, I promise. But anyway, so you go, okay, the ghost, instead of being maybe the crusty old man that I had him originally be, maybe he really, really wants this family heirloom, right? But he's bound into, I need mosquito lawn spray. Nice. He's bound to this room. He can't leave this room, right? And he needs something else that's on the first floor of the house. He needs this rogue to go down, and whether or not the rogue does it, right, that's up to the rogue, or whoever is climbing in the window. But he needs them to go down to the first floor, into the kitchen, into the servants' quarter in the kitchen, where they had to have hidden whoever his servants before. They did not like him, and so they hid the key, the thing that he has been here to try to find forever, whatever it is to get him to be set free. They've hid that there, and maybe it's not there. Maybe that was something that you wanted them to find somewhere else, right? But he's certain that that's where that is, and maybe the player will go, okay, I'm gonna go find that. Right, gets them down onto the first floor, makes them go through your first floor kind of stuff. The other players, hell, maybe they don't even follow them in. They go through the first floor's front door, and they fall into your trap or whatever you have set there early. And maybe you can also have it be that the rogue now has an advantage because he didn't go through the front door, and now he can sneak up from behind, and all that kind of shit, right? You can also improv for the moment and then make alterations to your planned stuff so that it can appear later in a different form. E.g., a room that used to be on the first floor is now in the basement. Yeah, sure. Though I like your ways probably better. Well, I mean, it really just depends on what you want to do, right? You just gotta make it so it's believable. It might be contrived, but it's believable. But it's not gonna be a contrivance over a contrivance over a contrivance. Because at some point, you're gonna have to let this player play the game however they want to, right? If they skip some of your dungeon because of something you didn't think of, that's just something that happens, You move on from it. You flow with it. If you need them to get somewhere else, you figure out something in the moment, or you are an asshole and go, you're going here now, right? Like, something. It's not completely fucked at that point. Maybe even, right? Maybe even, hey Bramble, how's it going? Good to see you. It has been a while. Maybe even, because they didn't encounter this thing, they might even forget or never know that it was there, and they leave out the front door, or go to leave out the front door, and they encounter something else that is now somehow ramped up a little bit, or has changed in some way, that because they didn't encounter it before, it somehow manifests in a different way that's a little stronger, and something that they can fight at the end of this dungeon. It might be something interesting at the very end that they just get to either run past or fight or encounter and just have to deal with now. Like, there's so much you can do here with your brain. All you gotta do is go, man, I have a good brain, my brain good, I can think thing. Yes, let's do thing, right? I like what they're doing. I like that they're trying to subvert me. I like that they're trying to get past my shit. They thought they could get away from my front door trap that is actually a mimic that wants to eat them. Well, guess what? It's still there when you leave. You never encountered it, right? I don't know. Like Draco Kraken said, like, is it not awesome to just, like, see them try to do that and then maybe even, like, have them encounter it later? I don't know. Or just bypass it completely. I don't know.
Important. I also designed a dungeon that Monty again foiled, where they were in a volcano, and I was using Legend of Zelda as a massive reference. And there was a bunch of platforms that in my head I said, well, the characters will jump from platform to platform. Some of them will fall into the lava, and they'll work their way up to the door that is above them.
Why?
Well, I think Monty just teleported up and threw a rope down, and everybody climbed and bypassed the entire room. And I was a very new DM at the time, but it was in that moment that I said, oh, I can't exactly design this the same as I saw in Zelda. Because in Zelda, Link has to jump from platform to platform. But in Dungeons and Dragons, the characters don't have to do that. So keep in mind the characters' abilities and what they might do. And don't design a dungeon room that can be foiled just by a rope or a ladder.
Okay, so they titled this point as video game logic, right? I think that it should instead be titled as just assuming players will do what you want. Every time. That's not going to happen. You can't do that. You have to assume, I think, you have to assume that the players won't do exactly what you want. I think you have to assume that they will take a chance to do something else. And then, if they do, you're pleasantly surprised. If they don't, then you are not surprised, but you expected that, right? Like was said before, D&D is very much a game of improv. It is somebody's going to ask your NPC something crazy, or somebody's going to come up with a weird tactic that you've never seen, or somebody's going to be like, hey, can I try this, right? Can I try something outlandish that you didn't think of? And then you'll go, yeah, let's do it, right? Just you can't just assume that they're going to follow point A to point B. Point A and point B have this little thing called the infinite multiverse between them of other points that your players can think of. It's crazy to think the other way. Anyway, a major piece of advice I give when it comes to balancing, quote unquote, is taking into account what your players are capable of. Yes, that's exactly what I was talking about before. You as the DM know what your players are. Usually you know what that means in the sense of like what they can do, what their abilities are, what their spells are, what their potential spells are, what their potential items can do, what you've given them. You should already know a lot of things that will help you with your plans. So just take those into account, right?
If they you can't really get mad at them for finding the logical loopholes in your design.
That's true. Sorry, a room full of undead will be challenging for a party of warlocks, but a cakewalk if everyone's a cleric. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Just turn undead everything. Fuck it. Right? Exactly, yeah.
Can, if you want to, simply circumvent these abilities in many ways, but oftentimes that actually stifles player creativity.
Yeah.
So you want to have a measured response. In my experience, it is best to just remember the capabilities of my player characters and find opportunities where they can use their abilities in an interesting way. If your players love using spells like Dimension Door to teleport around, you might want to remember the fact that Dimension Door has a range of 500 feet. What if the puzzle now involves a tower that is more than 500 feet in height?
Sure.
Now all of a sudden you're stretching the bounds of what their spells can accomplish.
Okay, so they went into my point exactly. Very good. That's all I needed. Like, just know what your players can do, then account for it. And then I do like the addition though of maybe make it so that you have some things that will benefit the players' abilities and make them use them in certain ways that are interesting, right? Like make them have more interest. Like, let's say, okay. Let's say one of the best druid spells ever, heat metal, right? No. Let's use moonbeam. Okay. I just thought of this. So you're in some sort of really decrepit, broken down underground temple. Yeah, it has fallen underground. Let's say a century ago, right? And it was, after your players are kind of investigating it for a while, and it's, it's big, it's got some stuff, maybe some iconography here and there. You come to find out that this used to be the temple of the moon god, right? Whoever moon god you want, like whatever you want in that moment, right? And one of the things is like they find this old carving that's broken into pieces, right? But one of them is like the moon shining down on this point, and they at some point find this one point that is like shaped like a mirror or something, right? Something that allows light to bounce off it or whatever, and it is like, let's say it's intact, it doesn't look like it's been fucked up too much, right? And you then, like, maybe your players figure out, it needs the light of the moon. Well, we're underground. The cavern that we're in there's no way that the moon can shine in. Damn, right? And then you like your wow, brain, I almost said warlock. Your druid maybe at that moment goes, oh, I have Moonbeam. I'm going to cast Moonbeam on that, right? And then it bounces off that into a place, and then, like, that would be a really cool way to use a spell. Like, and then, right? Meta thing here. You've now taken away one of their spell slots for when they inevitably fight the boss or whatever it is that you have in this cavern. Woo! Right? You've made it so that it's a satisfying kind of thing. Hopefully satisfying, at least. At least it's satisfying to me right now because I like this idea now. I might have to use it at some point. But you have them use this spell in such a way that actually unlocks a puzzle, or maybe it gives them more information or something, or gives them some sort of boon, something that is going to help them, right? And then you've also made it so that you can not have to worry about that maybe 3rd level spell slot or 2nd level spell slot, right? Just because they had to use it in order to solve that puzzle. And if they don't use it, they don't use it, right? Like, they don't figure it out, whatever. That's just something that they're going to have to miss. It's unfortunate, but people aren't going to find out everything. Like, that's just not how it works, you know? Some players are going to miss a lot of things, or just enough that it's like, oh man, I made that for you, but oh well, right? And at that point, it's just another case of just going with the flow. Just let it happen. And then after the fact, when you're far away from that temple or whatever, you know, there's no reason that they will think about going that way. You tell them, like, oh man, remember that temple? Like, there was a moon dial there, or moon mirror there, right? And I was hoping that you would figure it out and use your spell there. And then they go, oh, right? And then you have a big laugh about it, and then you go, man, that would have been cool. And they go, well, what if we go back? And then you go, why would you? And they go, yeah, okay. Hey, Indigo, how's it going? But yeah, so anyway, that's my one big brain thing that I will say. Wasn't that big a brain, to be fair.
Accomplish interesting way. If your player characters have magical flight, well, a few flying enemies can really make that a bad day. If you're going to flood the dungeon, the players might use a water breathing spell, but water breathing doesn't give you the ability to swim.
That's true.
And characters that don't have a swim speed are pretty vulnerable underwater, even when they can breathe underwater as well. So there's lots of ways to allow the player characters to still use their abilities, but still challenge them in an interesting way. And when you are trying to avoid that video game logic thinking, I think it's really valuable to get into this mindset as you're designing your dungeon.
As a final...
Going good, about to play Root soon? Well, I don't know that. Sounds neat.
Idea for games, one thing that constantly causes me grief when I play video games now, because I've played so much Dungeons and Dragons, is invisible walls. I'm going to go back to Resident Evil here. There are times that I'm in a haunted mansion and I see that there's a balcony and woods off beyond, and part of me is like, well, if this was a real situation, I would jump over the balcony and just run away.
Don't worry, dude. Nobody likes invisible walls. That's just a universal dislike. Okay. Yes! Yeah, no, like, everybody... You don't have to have played D&D to notice that you can't do things when there's an invisible wall. That's why people use cliffs, or things that you actually could not get past, like a locked door. You're like, you know, I don't know.
But I can't do that.
Like, am I the only one who is very much respecting of games that don't use invisible walls and, like, you know, use their level design in such a way that actually, like, makes it so you feel like they designed this in such a way that you would go, oh, that could have been an invisible wall, but it's not. That's good, right? Like, that's always nice. I don't know.
Because there's no jump button. But in D&D, you don't need a jump button. There are no invisible walls. You can't build a linear...
Can you imagine a DM using invisible walls? So I can. That's the thing. You could, Man, forgot about the podcast was playing Monster Hunter Stories too. How is that? I was actually interested in that. But hey, it's good to see you, Slay. No worries. So I can imagine invisible walls being used, but I'm definitely appreciative of any creative decision to remove invisible walls. Yeah, invisible walls always suck in video games. But this is the thing. In D&D, that could be magic. That's the thing. You can use an invisible wall to be something that a wizard has turned these walls invisible to make this a maze that they have to figure out, right? There is a way to do this in D&D that can become something very interesting, right? They go through this thing kind of feeling along with the walls, and they see through the walls that there are pits, or, you know, other kinds of traps, or even monsters that are there that can see them as well, but they can't understand how to get through this labyrinth, right? and they don't want to go the way that they're going to get to these pits. But unfortunately, at some point, they might go that way without having known, you know? Like, it could be super interesting to do. It's more a walls of mirrors, I guess, or not mirrors, but windows, quote unquote, so you can see through them. But invisible, I guess you could see through something invisible. So yeah, that would still work. But like, I can see that being used and being super cool. It reminds me of a game design workshop I was listening to that said you can't have a game with 50 branching paths because most people won't get to see it all. A silly idea, in my opinion. Oh, sure, yeah. What if the wizard also has a trap in the invisible castle that turns all the adventurers invisible till they escape? Yeah, that would make it another whole thing of like, oh man, right? Like, what are we gonna do? I can't even see my own hands, and I can't see the walls, you know? I have to go literally by feeling. Obviously, this would be a thing that takes time, and it would be not for every group, right? But if your players are super into that, you think they would be super into that, do it, you know? All of a sudden, mimes get invented in the DM's world. Oh, no! I'm still early, but the battle animations are over the top, but it's been fun if you like the Pokemon style. Cool. Yeah, that makes sense. By the way, on the subject of players doing unexpected things in your dungeon, as a player, it frustrates me when a GM has a specific solution in mind to a challenge and nothing works properly except that. Oh, absolutely. Yeah, your DM should be open to you figuring something out without doing it the right quote-unquote way, right? Like, that's ridiculous for them to just assume that you need to, or that you are going to do this in this way. Like, that you have to do this in this way. Because that's not cool, man. Like, that's railroading. That's definitely railroading. Absolutely. Anyway. I think Boo is online. Let me get him real quick before I continue. Ha! Hey!
I was literally just about to say that I'm ready.
I knew it. How's it going?
Deep, dark, black soul.
I knew I could feel your presence, and I saw you come online.
So are we live?
Yes, we are live.
Sorry.
No, you're good. Don't worry. We've been going over this video that's on dungeon design mistakes in 5e. In general for Dungeons and Dragons from Dungeon Dudes, and it's been pretty cool so far, just to like do all these kinds of thought experiments and shit like with it, and like most of them are absolutely could be mistakes, but I can also see a lot of them being, and they've answered them in a way that's like, you know, I already answered it in that way, so yeah. Good. I'm glad you got there, right?
Yeah. Is there a chat link?
Yes. Give me a second. Bramble says, "Welcome, Boo, to your own show once again. I love how we're making this a tradition." And Indigo says he's really late. Put him in the invisible castle. True.
Yeah. I work a real job. So.
Not some plebeian job. No.
Yeah.
Why is this not outputting to the right thing? Hang on. I need to fix Discord real quick. Because it's not outputting to my correct output. Oh, that's why. Okay, say something. Yeah, there we go. I had it on regular input and not aux input. We're good. Cool. Alright, so now you're on a separate track and not just with the video. Good.
Oh, okay.
That's just easier for me later, if I need to boost or anything.
We're back to the channel that's starring Hans Gruber, the master criminal.
Yep.
From fucking Die Hard.
Yep.
I don't remember his name again. Also,
Alan Rickman.
Alan Rickman.
Yes.
Yeah. Love Alan Rickman too. He's fucking great, although he's dead.
So at the moment we are currently at a point where they're talking about don't use quote unquote video game logic when designing things, which I have more thought that this should be called don't assume that your players will do what you want them to do.
Yeah.
But there's also definitely a thing of like, there is more than one way to do something. And like with video games, if you're taking them as an inspiration, don't think of it. Yes, absolutely, you shouldn't think of it as like they can only do this one thing, right? And we were talking about invisible walls, like that's the current gripe, and we're just like, well, I was just like, yeah, I mean, nobody likes invisible walls, but then we started thinking about, but what if you had a maze of invisible walls that you could see through, and you could see like enemies inside of it, and you could see traps and stuff, and they had to navigate that shit. Like, oh man, it'd be super neat.
That
Anyway.
hang on.
Yeah, no, you're good.
That reminds me of a video that Spoonie did when he was still active.
Yeah. Way back.
Yeah, way back. And he was doing a whole bunch of D&D board games that were not, the RPG.
Right.
And one of them was the Dungeons and Dragons electronic maze game thing or something.
Okay.
And basically, the plot of the game, it's like it's effectively like a single player game where you are an adventurer and you're dropped into a maze, and the walls are in order to actually find the walls, basically imagine like you're walking into a dungeon that's completely pitch black. And the only way to find the walls is to fucking run full fucking speed directly into the wall and map that shit out as you fucking ram into each and every wall until then you find out the layout of the dungeon.
Yeah.
So you have to fucking go in there, yeeting yourself into walls to figure out the layout, and there's an invisible dragon guarding treasure. So you get the treasure, you avoid the invisible dragon.
Right.
And that makes me think of that.
Dude, that's the thing. I feel like that could be super fun to run in D&D.
Yeah.
Not as the game.
Really
that game sounds awful.
Oh no, the game is terrible.
Yeah.
But that still could be hilarious. Like imagine you go into a dungeon and it's all magical darkness that can't be dispelled. And now you have to map out this dungeon.
Yeah, no, that'd be super sick. Man.
Yeah.
I remember that. That was like 6 or 7 years ago. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh well. Counter Monkey was a great series.
It was a great series. That is what Counter Monkey is what got me interested in D&D.
Yeah, as it should. Honestly, it was great.
Yeah, it was fucking good.
Anyway.
By the way, since Pizza Funk has responded just then, I have to ask, did you see the meme that he made of Brogan?
Oh my god, I forgot. No, I'll show that right now. You're totally
it's
right.
So good, dude.
I forgot all about that.
I don't think Brogan knows about it.
Does he not? Oh my god.
Because Pizza Funk posted in our shit.
True.
And Brogan's not a part of it.
True. If you're on our Discord, you have probably seen this already, but I will pull it up right the fuck now. It was great.
It's so
good. Let's see. Memes. There you are.
You need to fucking put in fucking 50 Shades of Grey.
Right.
And Twilight and the Satanist Bible.
Right. Yeah, many things.
And Mein Kampf.
It is super good. It is super good. Right here. This is the image that he has photoshopped. But the image that was preceding this, it came after this. Wait, preceding is after, right?
No, preceding is before.
Yeah. Okay. Was this image? So yeah, do with that what you will. It's pretty great.
Yes, please do it.
If you're not seeing this right now as an audio listener, it is Brogan, no nat ones, our boy, with a book with a green thing in front of it.
And you can make that a movie too. It's just a really big movie box.
Yeah, absolutely. You
could make it Dragon Ball Evolution. Or
you
something.
could.
Or
the
also
best
50
movie.
Shades of Grey again.
Yeah. So
because he hated Evolution.
Oh, everyone did.
Everybody did.
Let's be honest. If you liked Evolution, I don't know why. Maybe it was your first movie, or you were a child. Either one.
Yeah, either that or you love it ironically.
Sure. Yeah,
because of how bad it is,
Even made the meme template. Yes, you did.
Yeah,
Pizza Funk. It was great. I wish Spoonie hadn't checked out of his career. Even now, he has a lot of people who would go right for a new real video from him.
Yeah.
Not one of those live streams, just classic stuff. Yeah, well.
Because, yeah, it's a shame because his fucking reviews were...
They were great.
They were really good.
Yeah, he was a funny guy.
Yeah, he was a fucking... He was a waste of talent. It's a damn shame.
It's unfortunate. But we have some of the good stuff to keep going back to, you know.
Yeah, exactly.
It's
It's still
all good.
there.
Yeah, absolutely. Until YouTube inevitably collapses because of the heat death of the universe, you know.
Yeah.
Whatever.
But that's not for another couple months.
Right, exactly. It's coming early, boys. Woo! Anyway.
Man, I'll never get to finish all my Tyranids. Fuck.
Right? I just started painting my, oh, fuck. Was this Doom Scythe or Night Scythe? Fuck.
Whichever one you picked.
It's the one that is the transport. I know that much. Which I didn't realize it was a transport as well. Like
Jesus.
Like one of them is like the I think it's the Doom Scythe that has the big gun, but the Night Scythe I think is the one that has you can hold up to 20 Necrons in it, and it's fucking great.
Jesus. Yeah, the Doom Scythe sounds a lot more like a vehicle, like a fighter.
Right, exactly. Yeah. So as soon as I saw that, I was like, dude, you're telling me I can just vroom this thing across the field and drop some fucking boys? Yeah.
How fast is it?
I don't have the stats on me right now, but I think it's good. I would imagine it's somewhere around 20 inches minimum.
Jesus.
Right? Like, fucking good. Anyway.
Yeah, anyway, let's get back to it. We got off topic.
Your path that can't be shenaniganed by your players doing something. So if you think that your players are not going to go in a certain direction because, well, there's nothing over there but a standard forest, they might investigate the forest.
They will
so be
investigate
very
the
aware
forest.
of real walls and don't rely on invisible walls.
I will say that there are invisible walls in D&D. They're called a wall of force. But you can use them.
No, they're not invisible.
Wait, they're not invisible.
Yeah, no, they're not invisible.
No,
they have color.
They have a shimmer, and yeah, what the fuck?
Or unless I'm thinking of like prismatic wall.
Maybe. I think Wall of Force is also. Let me. I guess a Wall of Force is all. It's what is called, and I don't think force can be seen. But
I guess it depends. I need to look.
I don't know, man.
Fuck.
Yeah,
I have
fair
that
enough.
app, and I'm just gonna put in
Oh,
wall.
good idea. Good idea.
Wall of sand, wall of water, wind wall, wall of fire, wall of force. Okay,
There you
let's
go.
see. An invisible wall of force. Never mind.
Oh well.
I was
fuck
thinking
me.
that it was prismatic wall. That's what I was thinking.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, you're right.
It is an invisible wall.
Just make your invisible wall wall of force maze. Like I said.
Yeah.
It's great.
Yeah.
Favorite things. I've recently been really into playing Valheim, and one of the things that Valheim does is it has areas of the map
I've yet
that
to play
your
it myself.
character takes cold damage when they try to explore it. So you need a cold resistance item to explore that area. And I really like the idea of a dungeon that is either super heated and you take fire damage unless your characters gain the ability to be resistant or immune to fire, or a dungeon that is filled with poison gas, or a dungeon that is super cold.
yeah.
And so, rather than the dungeon having a door and a key, the player characters have to have an item that allows them to survive in an extreme environment.
Or then you think, hey, the player characters are going to find a way to just push all the thing out, right? Or somehow do... Like, if it's gas, they might conjure a wind elemental or something, right? Like,
Or just fucking light a torch.
or light a torch, or, you know, like, it could be... and explode the entire thing, maybe destroying all the loot inside. That'd be interesting, actually. That'd be
But it would also destroy all the monsters, so...
Or, well, some things probably will be okay, right? But then they're super pissed, right?
Yeah, now they're mad.
But like you could have them, you know, try to do that absolutely, unless you make it pretty easy for them to do whatever it is that you're gonna have them do to bypass it the way that you want them to. They're probably gonna try something very interesting.
See, here's the thing. I like this idea. It's a great idea.
Oh yeah, absolutely. No qualms with that.
Yeah, it's a great idea, but you're putting a lot of faith in players. Because if you fucking put a because the thing is, a lot of the time it's going to be like, oh, we made it here and the dungeon is really hot. That must mean that we can do something to get in. Because a lot of times that just doesn't work, where you put something there and unless you flat out tell them this is just an establishing shot, you're not supposed to go in, they're gonna fucking go in.
Right, there's something interesting about this place. It's super heated.
Yeah, because you've brought it up.
Right, yeah. They'll focus on that.
Yeah, so like maybe if you have someone in the world, tell them about it.
Sure.
This
is the only way that you can get past the mystical gates of the ever-poisoned dungeon. You need to imbibe these potions that will give you resistance for an hour. You know what you do? You fucking have these dungeons around, but every time your party rocks up to them, there's a fucking cart outside. Guess who it is? The fucking potion seller. Hey, there he is. Hey.
And then he's like, you guys are fucking. I can't even do the voice
That's
now.
Fine, yeah.
But actually, he doesn't really have a voice.
No, he's just a guy, right?
And then you basically just have it be like, hey, if you go in there, you're gonna fucking die, but I can sell you this potion that can let you go in there for a little bit,
Sure, yeah, you can do
that.
So
that way you can at least have somebody tell them flat out in the world, like, hey, everybody who goes in there fucking dies.
Yeah.
So don't go in.
Yeah, absolutely. If that's the case, then you should establish that. Absolutely. What I would also say is, like, if they figure out something, like I said about this before, if they figure out something clever, reward them for that. Just let them do it. Yeah. If they want to take the risk of igniting all the gas and making all of the monsters hate them forever and maybe be, I don't know, somewhat stronger because of it or something. Like, I don't know. Or destroy a bunch of loot, or maybe even whatever it is they're trying to get in there, or I don't know, maybe not that much, maybe don't go that far, but you know what I mean. Maybe all the good sellable scrolls, or no, the good scrolls in there that aren't the main thing that they need are now blown up and set aflame and all that kind of shit. Just reward them.
One of the things that I think would be really cool is for a superheated dungeon, I would like it if it was essentially like a lava cavern.
Yeah.
Or like a lava tunnel or lava tube.
Sure.
Where the reason why it's hot is because there are like cracks in the wall that like are exposing like molten rock and shit. And that's where all the heat is coming from. And I would love it if a character would go in there and create water, and then someone else would use control water, and they would fucking flood the whole dungeon and fucking cause all the exposed molten rock to become, just
the cool
non-molten rock. What the fuck?
It's just rock. It's just rock at that point, right?
Because it's not on fire. You don't put out lava.
No, you can just cool it so that it becomes solid.
You just cool it. Cool it and solidify it. There we go.
Yes.
Jesus.
Yeah.
But I think that would be pretty cool. You fucking flood the dungeon, and now it's all like smoky and steamy in there, but it's bearable.
Yeah, sure. Resident Evil 4. Well, you came at the perfect time, because I think that this will be the midpoint of the episode, because we're at 15 minutes out of like 30. So
holy shit.
Yeah, I think only this video will be covered today. But in that case, we're gonna do some shout outs and some shill talk. Hey. Thank you everybody for coming by and hanging out again. It's you're gonna see Brogan for a moment, but I promise we'll get to the actual thing that I want to get to, and that is Patreon. So if you want to support us financially, remember, you don't have to, but if you want to, we are on Patreon, TableTalk DND over there. Drop us like $5, and then you get access to that. You get to have a little thing on our Discord, and also early access to things when I put them up. If I have time, because I have less time now than I did before, but Anyway, so we're also working towards things for our patrons. I'm hoping to get special dice at some point here to get to our patrons, because hey, you've been doing a thing for us for a while, and you deserve some dice. You know, dice are cool. But yeah, you would get them for free, and then we could sell, you know, some of them to people who aren't patrons. So if that's a thing that you want as well, go for it. But that is not, you know, the only thing about this, and you don't have to worry about buying that dice set. Or hell, you could subscribe for a month and then just not worry about it when it happens. You know, I don't give a fuck. Whatever you want to do. I love dice, says Steely. Well, good. Anyway, so these are our patrons right now. So thank you to Draco Kraken at that tier 3. Appreciate you very much. So yes. Nice, good Steely. Mog Zero as well at that tier 3. Appreciate you very much. Thank you. Slazer as well, who's been in the chat. Thank you very much. Draco Kraken has also been in the chat. I don't want to say that he hasn't been. And of course, Steely, also in the chat. Thank you very much for that tier 3. Drake Cross at tier 2. Thank you. And Chris at tier 1. Frozen Spaghetti at tier 1. Kill Chrono at tier 1. And Polyhedral also at that tier 1. Thank you to everybody who has done this. You help with some costs behind the scenes. I appreciate you, and all of us do as well. And you're insane. So,
yes,
thank you. Too. Yes. Another way, of course, that you can is to go over to TeePublic and go get the logo on a shirt or whatever else they sell. They sell a lot of things. They don't sell coasters. I'm sorry.
I don't know why we always harp about the coasters. Nobody gives a shit about coasters.
I love coasters. Fuck you.
I like how we both, because there clearly wasn't enough time for us to say fuck you and then for us to say fuck you in response.
Right, exactly. No, I really like coasters. I've even fucking 3D printed a coaster with the Horde logo on it. Like, I like
you
coasters.
You 3D printed plenty of coasters for me. Oh, right. Those were Tyranid bases.
Those were Tyranid terrain, yeah.
Oh, wait, no, just, no, those weren't, no, those were,
the bases too. That's right. For the rants. Yeah.
I don't know when the hell I'm going to do my Skaven.
Dude, I haven't based anything neat, so
yeah,
don't worry about it. But yeah, so you can go there as well. No coasters, I'm sorry. Other than that, of course, if you don't want to spend any money, hey, if you're new, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Man, oh man, get us to 100% people who watch it to be subscribed. I don't know what the current percentage is right now, but let me tell you, it's probably not close to that. Well, it probably is still, but it's probably,
because, you know,
it was like 90 or something before, but now let me look. Here we go. I'm not going to show it on stream because I don't actually know where it is, so I'm going to be looking for it for a second here. It's probably under analytics. That has to be it. There we go. Audience. There we go. Subscribe. Oh no, it's gone down. We're at 86%. 86% of you who are subscribed watch, but only 14.5% of you who are not subscribed watch. Subscribe and get us to 100%.
Well, it's probably people who have seen it like once and they're like, I fuck these guys.
Yeah, fuck these guys.
That.
And obviously, like the video, comment about things in the VOD. Comment even if you have already watched it live. I don't know, man. And also,
like, favorite, and subscribe.
That's what I said.
Oh, you
Share
did?
it.
Oh, okay, my bad.
Basically,
I wasn't paying attention.
Basically.
Because I never pay attention to this kind of shit.
That's fine. Hell,
unless
turn
it's
on
the internet historian, then I pay attention.
True, fair. He has really good ones. There's also that bell or whatever. Hit that. I don't fucking know. And also, share us with people that you know and make more people fans. I don't fucking care.
So that way we can maybe get their money too.
God damn. No. Anyway, Cody must be spying on you guys to see the competition. True. No, he wouldn't pay attention to us. We're gnats. So, That's all that. Thanks for.
He doesn't pay attention to nats. Not even no nat ones.
Ooh, nice, good one. There you go.
Yeah, it's not that good.
It was all right. Anyway, so let us continue on with our good old boys here, and see what else.
Alan Rickman's friend.
Yes.
And I think that that's a really cool design inroad.
Again, for me, that takes inspiration from something like Breath of the Wild, where we can draw inspiration from video games, but just be careful of the logic of video games that limits you, because D&D has far less limits.
My other video game logic pet peeve is NPC logic in video games. I love games like Skyrim or stealth games like Metal Gear Solid, but the NPC guards in those games act like idiots. And I've actually found that the behavior of NPC guards in games like Skyrim and Metal Gear Solid have infected the expectations of my players. Players expect that like they can trick guards and they'll just be like, oh, must have been my imagination. Oh, must have just been the wind. Or that the guard will like walk out alone. Or that guards don't know how to recognize the other people that are part of their unit and are easily foiled by like illusions, or that they don't know magic exists, or that like you can trick your way into the hobgoblin camp by dressing up as nondescript hobgoblin number 146, as if the hobgoblins aren't human beings that know how to recognize their friends, and they're like, you're a hobgoblin, but I've never seen you around here before.
Now,
right?
okay.
Like,
that depends on the size.
Sure.
If you have a fucking wall going on,
right? Yeah.
There's no way for them to know everybody.
Right.
So sometimes that can work, but most times I 100% agree.
In that case as well, you can just try to bluff your way through it, right? Like that.
Yeah.
You can give them the opportunity, of course, but like. Yeah, if your players are getting too much expectations on the idiocy of the NPCs, right? Then fair enough. Give them a reality check. Put them in jail. I don't know, dude. Like,
yeah, because that, like, hell, we've done that as a joke.
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah, no, we say it all the time. Must have been the wind, right?
Must have been the wind. You know?
It's great.
Well, we say that as a joke because we know how stupid that is.
Yeah.
Because it's not like in fucking Skyrim. Again, going back to Skyrim, it's not like in Skyrim where you can shoot a guy in the fucking eye with an arrow and be like, "Who's there?"
Yeah.
5 seconds later, it must have been my imagination. Right. Fucking no, that doesn't happen.
No, it's true. And yeah, Pizza Funk makes a good point. In Metal Gear Solid, guards will follow your footprints you leave in the snow. It's true.
Damn, that's cool.
Yeah, in the original like Metal Gear Solid, it was really detailed. In fact, I think even in the newest one in 5, there's some stuff that's pretty cool in that. They pay attention to noise and shit. Like, it's great. Really good.
Can you?
Yeah.
There we go. Yeah, for some reason my headset is just like I'm always green even though I'm not talking lately.
Oh, weird. Oh, it must be picking up just some background stuff, but I don't hear anything, so I don't know.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah, you're fine. You're fine. But yeah, so I agree. I guess if you're having issues with your players, to do something that makes them learn.
Yeah.
Nice.
Like, so that idea that like the NPCs are so easy to fool that they don't have their own internal consistency, I can't stand that expectation with players, and I so often see DMs fall victim to it.
In Skyrim, my favorite thing to do is get my...
By the way, apparently it must be another guy in your room.
Yeah, I
just
know.
Making it
Somebody
go. It's
else.
just some ghost, whatever.
Yeah.
Trying to get this message that you
Duke
killed him.
Boo. I don't fucking know. Baron
felt so
Boo.
high that I could pop out, shoot a guard, and duck, and they'd look right at me and go, must have been my imagination, with an arrow sticking out of their head. This should not work in D&D, and if you shoot a guard in the head and then duck behind some rocks, guess what? The entire camp is coming after you.
Unless you killed the guard in a place where he's just dead.
Yeah, I mean...
You shoot him in the head and he's dead and nobody saw it.
Right.
Now, see, here's the thing. If you want to get good NPC stealth, you need to play like stealth games on the hardest difficulties.
Yeah.
To get us a real sense of it.
Absolutely.
So
you want dedicated stealth games, absolutely.
Yes, dedicated stealth games, or at least ones where it's a major part of the gameplay.
Yep.
If you choose to do it. So like the one that most that I could recommend the easiest would be Dishonored.
Yep.
Because obviously that's not 100% dedicated stealth. You can go through loud, but it's way harder. But if you play that on like the hardest difficulty with all the settings to make it as hard as possible, that's what you're looking for. Because stealth is fucking hard.
Yep, should be.
And the other one that I would recommend, even though it's way less popular, would be the Styx games, where he plays a goblin. Fuck, those are good. But yeah, that's what you're looking for, where like you walk around the corner and someone fucking sees you, but you run back around. That's not how that works.
No.
They see you, you're seen.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm a little behind on the stream, but if the players ignore part of a dungeon, you can always use the patented Coville screw, so the monsters are attracted by the noise of the final boss fight. True. Yeah, that's true.
Oh man,
that'd be interesting.
That sucks. Like, imagine you're fighting the final boss, and then the whole dungeon's like, "Hey guys, what's going on in here?"
Right? Yeah, that'd be interesting. Actually, I would like that. On the other side of this, though, you do need to make it so that the NPCs are flawed, and that sometimes they don't do the optimal thing. Sometimes they act on emotion, sometimes they messed up. It should be a mix. Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Absolutely.
We're just talking about the fact that if somebody is doing the stealth thing, right, where they just go, they pop out, and then they go, and then they pop back into cover or whatever, that's not, come on.
You're seen.
Yeah.
If they saw you, you're seen. It's not like in Skyrim where if they see you, you have to wait for the eye to like fully open to be detected.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then even then, if you go and sneak around the corner again, then and they look for long enough, it'll just close again, and then they're not even looking for you anymore. That's not how that works.
And obviously you can use your if they have this thought of like maybe they'll draw the guards away by throwing a rock over there and making some noise, like that could totally work. And you can make it. You can make it so that instead of one guard, they have 3, right?
Yes.
That way you can show off one that they will investigate these things, but it will be more of a danger if you're caught by them because there's 3 of them now.
Yes, because if you're a guard and you hear a noise, like off somewhere, like off in a dark alleyway, I'm not going in there alone. I will call my guard friend.
Sure.
And be like, hey, I heard a noise in here. We should go and investigate this together.
Sure, yeah. And yeah, Celia, you're right. So, like, he says, right. So, like, sometimes they alert their friends like they should, and once in a while they foolishly decide to go check it out alone because if they don't want to wake everyone up, etc. Sure, yeah.
Yes, that's another good one.
You can absolutely get the new to the job guy, right? Like, it's his first day. He doesn't want to fuck up. He doesn't want to, like, make his superiors angry at him, so he goes for his own, and because he's got this bravado, and also, like, he's a guard. I can take care of this. Yeah,
and I gotta fucking look good for the guys upstairs.
Yeah, and if I
take
catch
care
somebody
of this alone.
If I catch somebody by myself, that's my get, right? Like I get the glory. Absolutely.
That's my collar.
Yeah, totally. Like that is also something that's perfectly valid.
Guarding beautiful things for beautiful people. It's beautiful.
Yeah. So man. Cool.
Yeah.
That I want to bring up this idea that we call locked in the dungeon syndrome. And this is where you build a dungeon where every room exists for itself. It's kind of this 4th edition encounter design philosophy where every group of monsters exists in their room and they don't leave their room ever. So every single room in the dungeon is a perfectly balanced combat encounter that is precisely tailored for the right challenge rating, and the monsters will never leave that room for any reason whatsoever, so the players always have a fair fight in every single room.
So
that sounds awesome. I love it.
Right? So, like, obviously my only contention is, so far, I mean, this is the point of, like, this is a mistake. Sure, yeah, that doesn't sound great. I don't know enough about 4E, but I highly doubt that was because, like, 4E, that was 4E's thing. I don't know.
It wasn't. He's just going into it because, it's a 4E design because 4E was designed to be like a video game.
Right, exactly. And so I'm just like, come on.
God. The thing is with 4E, it's just a meme.
Right. But
and so it's so hard for people to not talk about 4E without it being in the meme sense. So,
yeah, I know.
I basically just hand wave all the 4E bullshit that we
fair,
hear.
Fair. And players can take their time to recon and see if they can notice anyone who might act in a particular way, a rookie or a drunk or whatever. Reward them for recon. Oh, absolutely,
yes.
Yeah.
Fucking case the place.
Yeah, it's a good strategy. That's the thing.
Just don't put on the mask early.
Right. If they're gonna do that, then yeah, like give them that reward. Give them the information they seek.
Because they did their due diligence.
Yeah, and they should be rewarded.
Yes.
But yeah, so for this, it's like, yes, everything doesn't exist in a vacuum. I agree.
Yeah.
Like that's if somebody is fighting the big bugbear in the room that's over across from the kitchen, well, whatever goblin is cooking up the stew is also going to come over and go, ah! And then alert a bunch of other goblins who might be down the hall or something, like it's...
And then they're going to go...
Recently
Bramble got into Payday 2. Yeah, dude, it's fucking good.
It's one of my favorite games of all time. It's so fucking good. I literally have like almost all the DLC. It's great.
Beats the funk.
Guard 1. Hey, I heard something. Help me investigate. Guard 2. If you like investigating, why don't you marry it? Guard 1. Stop clowning around and help me. Guard 2. Okay, God. Nice.
That's really good. I love it.
Yeah, you can characterize these guards as well. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Like, give them these little things that they'll be remembered for,
Yeah.
And then it becomes even a more memorable encounter that they went through.
Yeah, and then honestly, like, if I was doing a stealth mission and I heard a guard say that, I don't think I would want to kill him anymore.
Sure.
I think I'd rather, like, just knock him out or just avoid him entirely.
Well, that's like, that reminds me of, since this brought it up, the topics of video games, reminds me of Thief. The original Thief had like these two guards that you would find over and over and over, and like if you didn't kill them, they would keep like being put into guard duty in these places. It was great, because one of them was like,
oh shit, I didn't mean to do that.
Oh my God, how could you put it to
I didn't mean to. I was fucking trying to click a different tab.
That's fair. Don't worry about it. I got it.
Okay,
We're good.
My name is Monty Martin.
Hi, we're like here.
Guess what? The entire camp is coming after you.
Okay, we're a little past that, but yeah. Anyway.
Yeah. Sorry.
You're good. So that was an example of like you would hear this little conversation and then you would knock them out later, and then you would hear them later, and it'd be like, oh, hey, those guys, right?
I love that. Fuck.
Yeah.
It really, that's one of the things that I love to do in stealth games and other shit like that is listen.
Yeah. Oh, it's great.
Because, man, so many games, because you can listen plenty of times in plenty of games, but the thing is, you never really feel rewarded for it.
Sure.
A lot of times.
Yeah.
But in stealth games, what they say is usually very important.
Sure, it can be. Absolutely. You get some kind of information, or you just hear about their daily life,
Yeah,
whatever. And it's just something.
It reminds me of a fucking part in one of the newer Hitmans,
okay,
where you're sidling along the edge of a castle or some shit on a cliff.
Oh, yeah. I know.
Yeah, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
You're sidling along the edge, and you have to walk past some windows. And as you approach one of the windows, a guy is on the phone, like a guard is on the phone talking. And he's talking to his doctor.
Yeah.
And he's like, "Oh, so I am negative for this."
Yeah.
He's like, "Yes."
Yeah.
"Oh, thank you, God. Thank you, Doc. Man, you just made my day." And he hangs up. It's like, "Man, I'm negative for cancer. Man, this day couldn't get there's nothing that could ruin this day." And then you yank him out of the fucking window. He dies, and then you go in through the window.
Yeah, I know that exact moment.
Bad.
It's so good, though. It's so good.
Oh my God. Love that shit.
Yeah.
So every single room in the dungeon is a perfectly balanced combat encounter that is precisely tailored for the right challenge rating, and the monsters will never leave that room for any reason whatsoever, so the players always have a fair fight in every single room. I'm sick of this, to be honest. And it's it is kind of an extension of the video game logic, but I think that it makes the world feel so artificial.
I want to bring in this point that in most castles, if the drawbridge is being lowered or the gate is being opened, a horn is sounded so that everybody knows.
Sure.
And also, if you're ever at home and you are a few rooms away and there's a knock at the front door, you usually hear it. So that stands to reason that if there's a battle a few rooms away, the creatures that are in another room are probably aware that something is going on.
Screaming.
I hear somebody sneeze a few rooms over, so you should be able to hear clashing swords and spell blasts.
Oh yeah.
Now here's the thing.
Far...
Here's the thing that you can actually twist this if you want. You can have this kind of feeling to a dungeon where you have rooms and you get in a fight, and then maybe it was a really loud fight, and maybe this is something you can do for your players, or to your players, really. Depending on what kind of DM you are, if you are the kind of DM who very often follows logic and shit like that, where you get in a fight in a dungeon and then things from other rooms come to investigate, you can actually do it opposite, where depending on what's in the dungeon, if there's a smart, like if the things in the other rooms are smart, so like hobgoblins, they're very smart, they're militaristically minded and all kinds of shit like that.
Yep.
You get in a fight with goblins, there's screaming, there's spells, there's all this kind of bullshit going on, and then nothing.
Right, silence.
Yeah, silence.
Yeah.
Nothing is coming. Then, when you turn that corner, then the hobgoblins have set up a fucking barricade.
Right, yeah.
They set up a barricade, they set up cover, they've got fucking crossbows aimed exactly down that corridor, and they let loose a volley.
Oh, absolutely.
So then, you turn the party's loudness into an opportunity for ambushes. Even though they know there's shit in there, it's still an ambush.
Yep. Yeah.
So you can have that kind of feeling, but really twist it to make all of the sense.
Yeah, no, that sound. Yeah, absolutely. Have them,
and it'd be fucking scary too, because like, holy shit.
Well, then they
now you're
start
walking into a fucking gun line,
right? And then once they take care of that, if they take care of that, then they like are worried about every corner, right? Like,
yeah, because you can. The other thing is that, again, if they're smart, the hobgoblins can be like, okay, we're going to set up the barricade. You go warn every single room. Now you're fucked.
Yeah, very true.
Away. So think of your dungeons not as a room-by-room basis, but as a living and breathing space where every creature in there is probably aware of something that is happening. If players are being stealthy and then it breaks into an epic battle, they're not able to just finish that battle up, go back to crouching and sneak into the next room without the people in that room being like, were you the people who just killed everybody in that last room? Because we heard it.
Now, sometimes this can be.
Did you kill them?
Hands on hips. Did you murder my friends?
Aw, you got me. Sorry. Now I'm gonna kill you.
Pulls up a shield. No, I don't think so.
That's not gonna happen.
Dungeon that is filled with traps, undead guardians, summoned monsters, or creatures that aren't living, thinking people.
Yeah.
Then you might be justified in operating it on that way. So there is a time and a place where this is okay. Like a crypt or a tomb, that could make sense. But if you're building an environment that is occupied by bandits or an enemy army of some kind, or the intelligent undead servants of a vampire, they're going to have a way of communicating with each other and a way of talking with each other and checking in. And this is why oftentimes when I design my dungeons, I don't design dungeons with these monsters go in this room, these monsters go in this room, these monsters go in this room. Oftentimes I do associate monsters with a specific room where that's kind of where they work. But I like to know what the purpose of all my rooms are, and I'll often make a roster of the monsters and talk about in my notes, oh, sometimes this monster goes here, sometimes this monster goes here. It might be pretty normal, for example, if you have a standard environment that maybe there's a workshop where the blacksmith works during the day, and there's a kitchen where the cook works during the day, but everyone in the dungeon comes to the Great Hall to have dinner, and they're all sleeping at night. A simple schedule like that can actually make the player's decision of when they arrive at the dungeon really, really meaningful.
In our
I didn't even think of like a schedule, right?
Yeah, that's brilliant.
If it's something that is intelligent, then like it's not just something that, well, even for like low intelligence beasts, they have a schedule, right?
Yeah, I mean they sleep and they eat and yeah.
Like
their schedule just has fewer things in it.
Exactly. Like maybe they go out to hunt so that they can bring it back to eat, right?
Yeah.
Well, like having made something like that, then you can really like, especially if they want to recon, you give them some of the schedule, right? You give them the ability, unless they recon the whole day, which they might.
Yeah, they might.
They might not learn the entirety of the schedule, but they might learn during the time that they think they want to go in, if that's a good time, right? They might see the guard change, or they might see that everybody's going to eat, and they're making a lot of noise, right? They're doing that kind of thing, so it makes it easier for them to sneak around, maybe. You know, and then you have that kind of complication of, oh, one of them is actually going to go take a piss right now. Right? Like, then you have some little things that you can throw in as curveballs, which would be really fun. But like, man, that's a great idea. I love schedule. Yes.
Yeah. And then Steely,
yes.
The alternate issue might be this. How do you make it so the players can reasonably get into the first combat without then having the entire place on them in the next minute? How do you balance?
Interesting.
Yeah.
That's a good question.
Yeah. That is honestly probably a big reason as to why a lot of people run dungeons where if you get in a fight, nobody else hears it.
True.
Because that's the problem. When you're assaulting an enemy stronghold, you're on their turf, and there's a lot more of them than there are of you. And you have limited attacks per action and limited spells, so my idea of having them set up and get ready for an attack is a good one.
Yeah, I would say so.
And don't mean to toot my own horn, but it's difficult sometimes.
Right. For something like that, it really depends on how you design your place. If you want to make it so that they have this ability to fight something and not have the entirety of the thing come at you, you have to figure out a reason why that is. Right?
Yes.
Maybe you have it so that they see if they recon, maybe they don't recon and they just come across this. They come across a patrol, right? That goes out at a certain time every now and again. And they encounter this patrol, but it's far enough away that if they do this fight, they won't necessarily alert everyone there, but they get an idea of what they're going to deal with, right? What the how much damage they'll do, you know, all that kind of stuff. Some interesting or some useful battle data for them to think about later. That way you can kind of make it so that they're less or they're somewhat more prepared in that case. If you want to make it so that they fear or maybe don't fear as much of this entire base kind of coming after them if they get caught, right?
Yeah.
Because then
an
it's
option.
Like, sorry. I was just gonna say, like, then it's just that little taste to get them hooked, and then let them go.
An option could be it depends on your players and what you're comfortable giving them.
True.
But a scroll of silence. You could do that where you just cast silence on an area. You cast silence on the middle of the room and then run in and just hope to God you finish that combat before the silence wears out.
Yep.
Because that is a perfect way to do it.
Yeah, silence is a great spell. Though, again, it is a limiting thing because nobody can do any verbal spells.
Exactly.
Right? So it's a risk versus reward kind of thing, which is great.
So if you have a wizard who can cast shit with somatics, great. like if you have it's a sorcerer, isn't it? They're the ones who can fuck with their spells.
Yeah, quick and spell, and all that, silent spell,
and then
all that.
like, isn't there like silent spell?
Yes,
well?
yep. They got meta magic.
Yeah, so they can cast it, and they don't need any verbal stuff, even for things that need verbal stuff. I think that's what silent spell does, right? Yeah. And then so you can do it that way, but that would also see. Here's the problem: if you give them that ability, fuck spellcasters that you have them fight. Fuck them. They're done.
Yeah.
So it depends on what you're comfortable giving them.
Yeah, I mean, it really depends on what you want to do here. It's, again, everything is a balance. Like, you gotta like, in the moment, you might come across something that you're like, oh, fuck, this might not work so well, I gotta change it a little bit, right? Just because of what they're doing or something. Yeah. It really depends. So just be malleable, basically, is my advice in that case. So that players can learn the way things work, quote unquote, and also shed some of the expectations of one-room encounters or video game stealth, you could do a short early mission where they are led by a DMPC. You could. Yeah. Almost like a tutorial level in a video game, actually. Have the DMPC say things like, hey, if you do X, then you'll alert the whole place, or stop that guy from running, etc. Oh yeah, sure. Yeah. You can do that with a DMPC or NPC. It really doesn't matter either way, but like making it so that like they're with some sort of stealthy man who's been doing this for years, but he needs a help with this job because it's a big one, right? And then he wants to assess their abilities, so he takes them to an easy place, right? Of which things can go wrong if they decide to do that shit. And then he goes, whoa, like you're saying, whoa, if you do that, that's bad, right? Like
that bad.
Yeah, and so you set their expectations of this kind of stuff, like you said, and I think that's a great way to do it as well. Yeah, utilizing that tool that everybody hates.
Lots of good ideas tonight.
Lots of them, absolutely.
Experience making the schedule and roster takes about the same amount of work as a random encounter table, and works in our case better.
Sure.
It doesn't have to be too complex either. Just think of your own schedule in your life. I mean, most days I spend either working, playing video games, sleeping, or eating. Fair. And so you just need to decide
fucking lazy bastard
where they sleep, eat, work, or play.
So a lot of these topics that we are discussing actually lean into our next point, which is the snapping of the suspension of disbelief.
Okay.
Although we are existing in a fantasy world filled with magic and elves and dragons, there still needs to be a logical through line that holds the world together. And although we all have a pretty high suspension of disbelief when playing Dungeons and Dragons, there is a limit to that. And if you cross that limit, you risk losing your player's interest in the dungeon if it just doesn't make sense.
Yes. It's easy to respond to this criticism by saying, it's a fantasy world filled with magic. I don't have to explain anything. But that is
but it's such a shitty response.
Yeah, it's a shit response. And see, here's the thing. I'm gonna throw another curveball here.
Oh.
Where, yes, absolutely, but in the times where it doesn't make sense, you just give them that little smile and say, yeah, that doesn't make sense. That's,
that is also a good one. Absolutely. Because you know why it makes sense.
Yeah, because you know that it does make sense, or you know why it makes sense.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So then, but then they don't know. They're like, oh shit, there's something going on here. You know?
That can be extremely good. Absolutely. Yes. But that requires you to know beforehand why or how it makes sense. So
exactly.
Still make it make sense.
If it's an obvious, if it's like a big story beat, that's pretty easy. You just write it.
Yeah.
And then when they say like, oh, that's weird, it's like, yeah, isn't it?
Whoa.
Like, how was that vampire out in the sunlight? Yeah. How was he?
It's crazy.
Fucking daywalkers.
Hell yeah. Step 1, drop smartphones into the enemy camp. Step 2, walk in and take the place while everyone is checking their mentions. Yeah, nice. There it is.
Disappointing answer. And think about all the movies that you've watched that have been in a fantasy setting, whether they are the Marvel movies, when you've gone, whoa, that does not make sense.
Yeah.
That's how your players can feel sometimes when they encounter a world that has logical inconsistencies.
Yes.
And so it is worth about thinking about how your dungeon is a dynamic, breathing environment.
Yes.
Just as we looked at the schedule of the monsters, if you have living creatures inhabiting your dungeon, yeah, they need to eat. They need to sleep. They need to have fresh water and things to drink. They need to have things to do. They probably really don't like being trapped in a single room all day for years on end, never being able to go outside and see their friends.
Unless
Unless
they're
they're
golem.
skeletons.
Oh.
And moreover, they probably need somewhere to go to the bathroom and have a shower.
Unless they're golem.
Yeah.
Now, you don't have to go super far with this and come up with a complex explanation that makes like a perfect ecology for everything. You might just simply say, oh yeah, the goblins go out every week to raid a caravan and that's where they get their food from. Or here's an underground lake. I don't really, somehow it flows down in here. I don't need to make sure that the water table is perfectly explained here. Just as long
Fuck
as
you! I
have
want to
something.
ask about the water table. I'm a water druid who likes water. Fuck you.
Right. Hey, see you, Steely. See
Yeah,
you in the
see ya.
VOD.
Jeez, when you said catch you in the VOD, I thought you said catch you in the void, and I'm like, I'm sorry?
Yes. But no, like he's right. They just make it make sense enough. Like you don't need to have it be perfect. You know, you're not gonna encounter assholes like me and Aiden who who need it. No, we don't need it perfect. Obviously, we just need it to make sense, right? Like,
Yeah, because like the thing is, people are gonna have a question about how does A get B.
yes,
That's a simple question to answer
Yes.
if you have C.
yes,
So A gets B from C. Goblins get water from the lake.
Yes.
But no one ever, unless they're assholes or they're just joking, will say, where does C get D?
wow.
Because it's not that important from there.
Yes, as long as it's
Because-
not something that is completely hard to understand,
Yeah.
that's when
So-
you get those questions, right?
Yeah, because goblins get water from the lake, which flows from somewhere. Nobody cares where
Right.
the lake flows from.
As long as you say it flows from over there, you go,
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah.
right?
Or you can see fucking water trickling through cracks in the
Yes.
stone walls.
Easily.
That's enough.
Yes, that is
Easy.
totally fine.
Yeah. So if you have an A, B, C of logic,
Mm-hmm.
that's plenty for the majority of people, aside
Yes.
from Alejo and Aiden and me.
Because then I go, wait, is there an underground lake back there that is, or some
Is
sort
there
of
like
river?
is there an underground river? I want to go look at there.
I wanna go over there. I'm gonna pick the wall and then get flooded back because it's an underground
Yeah.
river. Woo!
or is it coming from like a river that's up above? you
yeah.
know? Ugh. God.
Well,
fuck
that's
you.
the thing. It's unfortunate because I think about that.
I
'Cause it's
know,
like,
me too.
right? Because it's just like, man, if there's
like,
a
this is
river up
sign-
there.
Because in the real world, that would be a sign of something else being further in.
Yeah.
You know, if you see water trickling in from there, then I'm like, where the hell is that water coming from?
Yeah.
In real life, I'd be like, where's that water coming from? That's pretty neat. You
Yeah.
know, and then I would just be done with it. But in D&D, I'm like, you know, all it's taking is mental energy. I don't have to go walk or use a
Right.
fucking pickaxe to dig through the goddamn wall.
So I want to do it. Let's do it.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally.
Encourage you to more interesting environments, because now if you need to have a source of water in your dungeon, well, now water can add a dynamic encounter.
True.
Maybe there is actually a water elemental hiding in the pool of water, right? Maybe there
trapped
is
in the pool of
maybe
water.
the fact that the goblins have to go out to raid to get food gives you an adventure hook that brings the players into the adventure.
True.
Thinking about how you can make your dungeon more logically consistent can actually make your story more rich and complex.
Yeah, this is the thing. Logical consistency within your writing of whatever kind is only a benefit.
Yes.
It is never a drawback. That is
Yes.
that is the most important thing. That's why we stress it. That's why
You.
I
You,
stress
Nate.
it. Yes.
I want it too. Don't worry.
right. Well, that's the thing. You just want
I'm just
you
all salty because of how I have to fucking write my shit because of you.
well, it's just one of those things where I look for that in what I look at with writing because I just want it to be the best it can be, right?
Yeah.
If they usually make a shitty movie and I go, oh fuck, that sucks because
Yeah.
of this, because but like you also go, well, now you can learn from that Because if you were to make this, you would go, this is how you make it more consistent, thus making it better, you know?
Yeah.
Like, it is just, again, just a benefit to just think about this and go through and think A to B to C. A to B to C, and we're good. Does C make sense in this way? Good. If it doesn't, we got to change C a little bit, right?
Yeah, then change C.
Or we can change A and B to make it work, but does that make A and B work over here, you know? Like, as long as there's a through line, you will be fine.
Yeah.
And everyone will appreciate it if they look into it if they choose to look into it more, you know?
Now, the downside is when another reason why you don't ever really need to go into D is because, one, no one's gonna ask, and two, the bigger one is because no one's gonna ask. That's a lot of mental energy that you're starting to expend on things, because obviously adding one step doesn't sound like much, but when you're building a full dungeon or a town or a city or a world, you gotta cut some corners somewhere.
Yeah, that's true.
And the important part is that if you have A, B, and C, you can usually necessarily figure out D from C.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because you can just make a little leap of logic. It's not that hard.
It's not too hard. Absolutely.
Because, if I said, there's a lake, there's an underground lake, and then someone says, well, where did it come from? Underground river.
Yep. Wow. Yeah, easy. There it is.
It's easy. Or it's the river on the surface is it's there.
Yeah, and
it's coming from there.
Yeah, absolutely. Amish says, oh god, I watched the whole stream on 2x speed to catch up, and now you both sound really stoned. Actually, Boo's mostly fine. It's more Alejo. Fair enough, dude. Fair enough.
Oh, wait, on what? On the consistency shit?
No, on being really stoned, apparently sounding.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not all that tired because I just got home from work, so I'm still a little bit wired from driving.
Fair, yeah.
Yep.
Your dungeon should have a purpose, and by simply giving it a purpose and giving the characters who inhabit that dungeon purpose to be there, you're creating a more dynamic experience for your players to explore. You're giving them things to interact with. If they're observing their schedule, if they can get the lowdown on the different rooms in the dungeon and what they might be used for, they can now start to think of clever ways to exploit that, which means that they're going to have more fun digging into the dungeon. If they come across a cave of goblins, and as they go and it's like, here's the room where the goblins are to stab you. Here's another room where the goblins sit, but they jump up to stab you. And in this final room, there's a group of goblins here to stab you. Well,
fuck yeah,
what is
love
the
it.
point of these rooms?
I actually really like that.
Perfect dungeon. 10 out of 10.
Yeah, the
Stab
goblins.
me.
It's like whenever we have been in a combat for a long time, and I'm like, okay, you do your thing and you do it really good. And
Right?
You hit.
Yeah.
But,
Totally.
So I think in back to seriousness,
Right.
This is all very, very good advice. However, I think it's important to let's see, what am I trying to say here? Before you start building dungeons with these like this sounds if you build a dungeon and you follow these tips, the dungeon's going to be incredible.
Yeah.
However, you need to make sure that you're building a dungeon for people who would actually both appreciate and explore it. You know what I mean? Because what I mean is, there's not a whole lot of if you are a DM and you're trying to build your whole story and your whole world and all that, it can be, let's see, what am I trying to say? You need to make sure that the people who are actually going to go in your dungeon are actually going to, take part in the dungeon. Sure. If you take the time to write out this dungeon, write out the schedule, do all this, ABC of logic and all that good stuff, and you make the dungeon amazing, it'll kind of be a bit of a downer for you if they just run in guns a-blazing, kill everything, don't explore, and you know what I mean?
I think that's definitely a personal thing.
Yes. So that's why I'm saying that if you like these tips, you need to make sure that your players are people who would appreciate it.
Well,
because if they're not, then there's not a whole lot of point in building it that way.
Well, so I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't at all. I would say some people are going to miss things regardless.
Mm-hmm.
Like whatever you build, some things are going to be missed. You got to at least expect that.
I know.
But I would also say that doing this as something that if you enjoy it and you appreciate it, I feel like that's enough, right?
Yeah.
I think having this be kind of a way that you work on your own logical consistency, like you make it so that in the future you can make a dungeon this way, right? You can make a great dungeon every time, like because you follow the steps that you have learned here. That's great. And you could even maybe move on from just designing dungeons for your game to maybe writing your own kinds of dungeons for other people to use, Like, I think that, yes, there is an element of perhaps you might feel a little bit down just because somebody doesn't find this thing that you hid over here and it's a really neat detail to your dungeon, right? But, again, it's gonna happen. You're not gonna get everybody to find it, and like, man, oh man, you did this though. You did it well. It all makes sense, and if somebody wants to dig deep into it, then they will be as pleased as you are with what it is.
I don't know if it, I didn't really mean like they miss little details. I just mean like if they're not the type to really engage in the logic of the world. That's kind of what I meant.
Sure.
Because like, obviously, if you hide a chest in a corner, if they miss it, then they fucking miss it. But if you're like, if you take the time, so like their dungeon example where they have like a blacksmith and a storage room, and a great hall and all that shit. If they go into the dungeon and they never, they just don't really engage with a lot of the logic that
if they go
in there.
If they go A to B like straight on and they don't encounter D and C over here.
Yeah, or they don't care. You know, it's basically like running a group of role players versus a group of war gamers.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
And like,
because the war gamers are just going to go in, kill shit, and leave.
Yeah, again, I understand what you mean. I just also think, like I feel like
that's fair. Because I guess what I said that in reference to was the DM who was building an entire world and using a lot of their mental strength to actually build this stuff and takes pride in it, and not just as a learning example.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? And a progression milestone, because that's a very good point, because I hadn't actually considered that.
Yeah. And like, even if you want to make it something that can be appreciated, again, I feel like regardless, you should do it however you want, and like, even if it's not appreciated by other people, you did it. You can appreciate it. It's
true. And an upside to even doing it at all is the fact that if it is a really, really good dungeon, if it is a really, really good dungeon and you're very proud of it and it makes perfect logical sense, keep that shit.
Yeah.
Just keep it.
Yeah.
And just run it for other people.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, if the next time it's like, oh, there's a bandit, there's a hole that bandits live in, and it's this, and the next campaign there's a hole that goblins live in, and it's this.
Sure, yeah, absolutely. See you, Dracker Kraken. To make this discussion slightly more universal, if you only have a limited amount of time, focus on what engages your players. Oh, sure, yeah.
That's pretty much what I meant.
That's fair. That is also fair. I can see that as well. But again, I wouldn't say.
But again, yes, I agree with both sides equally.
Yes, yeah, fair enough. But yeah.
Here's a room where they're chopping up bits of meat from animals that they have hunted. Here's a room where they're sitting around a campfire relaxing. Here's a room where the boss of the goblins, a bugbear, has made a big pile of furs and hay that he sits upon and commands all the other goblins, and this is his beautiful, luxurious throne room. Well, by giving these small purposes to these rooms, you're creating a more dynamic experience.
But
and
they're all still
I think
just
the
gonna
Goblin
stand up
Cave
and
at
stab
the
you.
beginning of the Lost
Yes, there's no difference.
Does an excellent job. You have the
That's
dog
true.
pen, you have the small camp, you have the throne room, you have the water trap, the bridge, the chimney chute. All of these have a purpose for being there, and there's clear ways that the people who inhabit this area live there, and they go out and they scout, they camp, they raid caravans, they bring the goods back, they bring back prisoners, and that's how they eat, that's how they grow, that's how they live. So it's very, very simple. You don't have to be complex, but it just makes it so much more interesting. And if your characters then ask questions like, well, what are these goblins doing here? Well, now you have answers.
And this is where you also want to make sure that you avoid one of the most common pitfalls of this kind of illogical world building when you create a dungeon. And that's where you have a dungeon that has like a killer death trap as the entrance, and then is inhabited by creatures that are apparently coming and going all the time. And so
unless they're immune to it,
it's like, oh,
yeah, that's true.
In order for the goblins to get into the cave on a daily basis, they would have to go through this death trap,
or
and
you have
so
a secret
now-
entrance.
Yes, that's also true. Yeah,
That is totally doable.
yeah. There are
Because
many ways.
then what you could do, again, here we go with my fucking thing. How the hell would they get? Yeah, it's weird, isn't it? It's
Yeah,
almost
yeah,
as
yeah.
if they might have another way in.
Yeah,
you know,
no, it's true.
And the thing is, you can be a real bastard and make it so it's pretty much only accessible to people of their size, because that's what kobolds do. They actually say that in the monster manual, where they dig tunnels in their fucking warrens that only they can fit into.
Yep, that is
tiny.
very true. That is very
Not
true.
actually tiny, but
Right, small, but you know. Yeah, no, that. There are ways to get around it, absolutely. But I understand what they're saying of like, don't make it so that it doesn't make any fucking sense. Like, you're making it make sense, which is good. That's what you should do.
Yes. Yeah, but dude, I would fucking love it if like every time you enter the dungeon is a falling rock trap, and then
Rocks fall and everyone dies.
yes, you just walk in the door, you're fucking dead. But the fucking the air elementals, they're immune to it.
Yeah.
Be a real
Think
dick
about,
move.
okay,
Yeah.
that death trap is there, but the goblins have a secret entrance.
There you
Hey!
You can find that secret entrance. Or maybe the goblins have a bypass in their trap. Sometimes the trap might be simple, like the trap only triggers for creatures that weigh more than 100 pounds,
Hey.
which means now your halflings and gnomes actually have a cool bypass to it.
Something that I love to do, especially with goblin caves or kobold caves, is the main entrance is trapped, but then there's some shrubs off to the side with an entrance that can only fit small
For
creatures.
fuck's sake!
And it has
It's every time. I'm so glad. I'm so happy.
Oh my god.
It's
I've never seen this video, by the way.
right. No, I know. Me either. That's the thing. We keep doing this. It's great. I love it.
little winding tunnels that these small creatures use to come and go. That's actually a smart move by the goblins or kobolds. The big entrance is trapped because they don't want big things coming and going.
Yeah.
But they have their clear, easy route in and out.
See, now
that
here's the
doesn't
thing,
hinder them.
though. Small little logic problem there.
Okay.
If they don't want big things coming in,
Why did they
do
make
they
it?
have the
Yeah.
big entrance?
Well, because they like to take the loot of the big things. Because the big things go in, they die in their trap, and then they take all their shit.
But what if if they die in the trap, then they can't really access it unless they can.
Unless they can. Yeah, I was gonna say. You think that the only way to get into the trap is by falling into it or whatever? They can go under it.
Yeah, they
or
probably have
something.
another way in from the other side. So, like, if it's a big fucking spike pit, they probably have a tunnel that just goes down and they
Yeah,
can walk down
exactly.
among the spikes. That's probably what it is.
Yeah. You can make it make
But I
sense.
still like that logic problem.
Oh,
where it's
yeah,
like,
no.
They just don't have the big entrance.
Yeah, well, no, that's true. That's the thing. And then the players say that, and you go, yeah, they shouldn't have the big
right?
entrance. Why do they have that?
Yeah.
Right?
Now,
Using your thing.
you can really easily do it where they have the big entrance because they need to be able to carry the big people loot in there.
Could also be that.
So, like, if they fucking raid a thing and, what am I trying to say? They raid a caravan, they take the wagon, and the wagon can't fucking fit through the small hole.
Yeah.
And they don't want to make a billion trips.
They just take it in a big hole. Yeah.
Okay, so hang on, real quick. Bramble, what the fuck is a stan? I heard this from a friend recently.
Oh, I know what that is.
Yeah.
So, stands are like avid fans that defend whatever, you know?
Okay.
No matter what. Usually.
what is-
It's not a great, healthy thing. Absolutely.
So they're like simps, but not Sims.
Yes. Yeah, in a way.
Oh.
It's like a fanatic, but way worse. Not like way worse, but it is fanatical. It is fanatical in nature.
Okay, I see.
It's not great.
Why is it called Stands?
I don't remember. I don't know that.
So weird.
This video is one of their newest and by far one of their best. Not a huge Dungeon Dude stan, but this video has some real gems. Okay, I see. Yeah, no, this has been great.
Yeah, no, it's very
super
good.
super good.
At all. Now, the flip side of this, there are two sides of the same coin here. You can bring logic into your world, and you should.
That's right. It is coined by Eminem. I forgot. That was like so long ago.
That's such a weird term.
Yeah, I don't know, dude. Language is weird.
Yeah, the English language is fucking stupid.
Yeah.
No wonder it's the hardest language in the world
Yeah.
to learn. It makes me happy that it's my first language.
Right.
I wish it wasn't my only language.
Yeah, that's also true.
think about those elements. But you also shouldn't be hindered by overthinking the logic of your world, because at the same time, this is a magical realm where creatures other than humanoids exist. So you don't have to follow the architecture and structural requirements of standard human living, because also, it's kind of cool to see giant structures and unfathomable architecture in a fantastical world. So you don't want to hinder yourself by building a perfectly realistic biosphere.
One of the great strengths of fantasy is imagining things that never were, could not be, but that we wish could be.
Sure.
Even within D&D adventures that play things pretty close to the hilt. If you look at Castle Ravenloft from Curse of Strahd, that is a huge castle.
Yeah. Oh, it's fucking
So it's like
big.
basically it's like Dracula's castle.
Yes, but
It's
like
fucking huge.
100 times bigger than Dracula's fucking castle. It's ridiculous how big that fucking thing is. Like,
Shit, really?
having
Because like I've played some Castlevania Metroidvanias, and that thing's big.
That's fair. That is fair. But like, if you look at the actual like description of Dracula's castle, like its actual description, like it Strahd's, I think, is like one of the spires is like 80 feet up. One of them, I don't even know. It's fucking ridiculous.
Wait, 80 feet or 80 meters?
Dude, I don't remember. But
Bramble. One of his songs named Stan was about an insane fan that murdered his wife and kids due to a very large misinterpretation of Eminem's music.
Gotcha.
So there we go. Thank you, Bramble. That is such a big help for me, because I'm like, I just want to understand sometimes.
That's fair. Yeah.
Anyway.
I remember hearing about a bit of it, and I just think of it as like, yeah, super fanatical, fucking not healthy in that way though.
Yeah.
Over 300 feet tall at its tallest tower. The tower
300. Never mind, 300 feet tall at the tallest tower.
Yeah. So that probably was 80 meters then.
Yeah, something like that.
Around that.
Yeah.
In size, it is completely unlike any castle that you could really find in real life. Like there's ones that come close. But even Castle Ravenloft, you look at it, like there's 10-foot blocks of solid stone that separate the floors and everything like that. Like there's the floors don't make any sense. They don't line up perfectly either. The towers don't make sense. And like you even compare Castle Ravenloft to famous real world fantasy castles like Neuschwanstein, and it's like this is way more unrealistic than even that. But it's okay, because Castle Ravenloft still has a good amount of internal consistency, and we're willing to buy that, yes, this epic 400-foot tall castle could exist on a 1,000-foot high cliff, because the image of a lightning bolt striking behind it as a vampire looks out on the starving village is cool. Yes,
cool.
The idea that there could be a dungeon high up 30,000 feet in the equivalent of the Himalaya mountains, where the air is so thin that you could never bring the blocks up there because it just would be impossible for people at this technological level. No, that's okay. You don't need to
They don't need to breed. They're vampires, dude.
Yeah, they're vampires.
And also the dark powers,
or skeletons, or golems, or something.
And also the dark powers made this land specifically for Strahd to live in. Don't worry about it, dude. Don't worry about it.
Wait, Castle Ravenloft is that high up?
Yeah.
Shit, I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's all fucked, dude. It's crazy.
constrain yourself away. Dwarves were fantastic builders. They were able to build great things. Maybe they used magic. Maybe they used earth elementals. And you probably don't need to go much further.
I guess the only thing that I have to say, it's a great place to pause. The only thing that I have to say, is obviously this all depends on your setting, like what you want. If you want it to be very realistic, you do your research. If you don't want it to be very realistic, you just figure out at least the internal consistency that you need for it to work. Like, I perfectly agree with this if this is what you want.
Yeah. Either one, either side.
Yeah,
dwarves built it to make your players accept it.
Yeah. And this is kind of a through line for a lot of the fantastical world, is you do have things like dwarves, elves, and dragons that can do things that humanoids can never do. And also, when they are building cities, you don't need to worry so much about... I feel like I've seen people complain about the thickness of outside walls or the height of outside walls.
Because we often have these images in fantasy artwork that depict city walls, like the walls of Constantinople, being like 200 feet tall and 50 feet thick, and those being super commonplace and everywhere. And
because that's a perfect representation of what happened with Constantinople. Absolutely.
Yeah,
right. Like come on.
Yeah, no, because like shit.
Yeah,
it's not gonna fucking. Was they actually that big?
No, probably not. No.
Oh,
I doubt.
Because like fucking, if you want an example of actually fairly somewhat representative walls in like fantasy stuff, like look at the walls that they make in or that they have in Total War Warhammer.
Yep.
Because those walls are actually, because the thing is, you have to assume that the cities that are actually walled, those are the capitals of provinces.
Yeah, exactly.
So it makes a fair bit of sense for those walls to be that big.
Yeah, they gotta be
because
big.
they gotta be, especially in fucking Warhammer. Yeah. They gotta be big.
There's a lot of big things in there.
There's a lot of really big things up there. You got fucking mammoths that can peek over the walls, dragon ogres. You got orcs fucking yeeting each other over the walls with catapults.
Yeah, go Gobbo, go eat your mushroom and fly.
Yeah. So like, and those walls are, I want to say they're like maybe like, let's see. Given how big like an orc is at the edge of a wall, I want to say that they're probably going to be like 40 feet tall.
I was going to say more actually, maybe because like it takes like maybe 10 orcs on a ladder to get all the way to the top.
It takes 10 orcs stacked on top of you.
Yeah.
I would actually love it if orcs didn't have ladders
they just stacked on top.
Made a slope of orcs.
They used fucking goblins. They just stacked goblins to walk up. Oh man, that'd be great.
That would be amazing. Anyway.
Yeah.
That's like more of a 40K thing. But
no, it's both. Let's be fair.
Yeah, it's true. But yeah, like those walls are fucking huge.
Yeah, they're massive.
That's only on like provincial capitals.
Yes.
So, but I mean, you can have that on big cities, but most of the other times you're gonna find walls that are like maybe 20 feet tall,
right?
And they're not gonna be made of stone.
I was gonna say like wood walls or so. Yeah,
wood walls, wood palisades. At worst.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I was listening yesterday to this podcast where they talk about civilizations built on top of mountains in the Stone Age that shouldn't have been possible, but there are multi-generational tombs. Yeah, well, humans are pretty cool sometimes.
Yeah, and is that like Tenochtitlan?
Yeah, right.
South America, because Tenochtitlan. That one wasn't.
It wasn't stone. It wasn't. Yeah, well, you're thinking of Chichen Itza, I believe.
Was Chichen Itza in the mountains?
Yeah, I think so.
I forget.
I believe it's Chichen Itza. Yeah.
I don't remember, but I know that there are South American
Machu Picchu.
Machu Picchu. That's it.
That's the one. Sorry.
Yeah, those are the ones that are like built on top of mountains. Like they did that because, dude, if you ever have any sort of question as to whether something would be possible to build in a D&D setting, take one look at the pyramids. Right. And then say, it's possible.
Yeah, it's probably possible. If they can do that, I'm pretty
in
sure.
real life.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure we can do that with magic.
Yeah.
We can do some
you'll be
shit.
fine.
We can do some shit.
Yeah, because aren't there fucking spells that literally just create shit?
Yeah, create or like move shit. Yeah. Like,
yeah, because like you could do move earth.
Yes, move earth or hell.
Move earth and then stone earth to stone.
Yeah.
Boom, done.
Yeah. And there's like, let's also be fair. They could just make spells. Fucking
They can just craft it. You can just make spells.
Yeah, back in the
because you're the DM, just make it be like, they did this.
Yeah.
Done.
I mean, like, we don't have to be beholden to 5e in general where it doesn't have any crafting whatsoever or spell making or anything. We can go for older editions that are like, hey, yeah, you want to make a spell? Let's make a spell, bro.
Yeah, let's fucking do it.
Let's do it.
Because, man, I love making spells.
Yeah, they're so fun.
Yeah.
Be as common as you want them to be in your world.
You know what people in your world probably had to build walls against? Well, giants, ogres, dragons.
Yes.
These are actual threats, so yeah, they're not going to live by the same logic that we do here. A 10-foot wall that is 5 feet thick is probably not good enough if a stone giant decides that it wants to raid your town. Now, another thing that I see a lot is there are a lot of people out there who are really into proper biomes and geography. And for those people who are into it, that's amazing.
Yeah.
But you shouldn't feel bad if you aren't into it. Your placement of swamps, forests, valleys, and mountains, if somebody comes to you and says, a swamp wouldn't be there, that doesn't make sense. Well, there's 1,000,001 reasons in a fantastical world that a swamp could have appeared there. Sure. I'm pretty sure I've heard of swamps that are the product of ancient wizard curses. Mm-hmm. So why not? And you don't really need more of an explanation. Yeah, sometimes throwing, well, it's just magical is a bit of a letdown, but at the same time, when the history of your world is that there have been many magical wars, and the byproducts of those wars are changing biomes, well, then who cares where your swamp is, or your forest is, or your...
Yeah, well, especially with that case, you then tell that guy, yeah, this is why, and then they go, okay.
Either that, or they're like, oh, but that's just taking the easy way out. You know, some.
And it's like, but at that point, you're just like, no, I could have just said that's just magic, but I gave you a whole explanation. You bitch.
It's true. Yeah.
Right. Like, if you want to do the legwork and actually give that reason, then you did the legwork, and you can say it's because of magic. And then if they go, well, that's not enough, you then go, well, there's more, but you don't know it necessarily, or maybe you do, you know, like is if you got the legwork, you can do that shit, you know. It's just it.
Yeah,
fucking great, good.
Mountain is. Try to do it to the best of your ability, and your players can explore that world as they see fit. Don't hold yourself too much to the restraints of real life.
Yeah, of course.
Agreed.
One of the other things that you can get carried away with too in this respect is looking at the game rules of Dungeons and Dragons and extrapolating those to an odd extreme, like building a dungeon where every single NPC has a magic sword, or where every single castle of every single baron, duchess, duke, or countess is warded against teleportation, or where every single object in every single shopkeeper's place has a glyph of warding on it. And so unless you're building a high-level world where these kind of things exist, don't worry about the world-building implications of the rules of the player's handbook. You don't need to then think, oh, because I live in a world where there are stone giants and where there are teleportation, where that means that every single castle is covered in a Mordenkainen's private sanctum. That's not necessarily the case. You don't need to always be foiling everything or having NPCs and villains and dungeon builders that thought of every single eventuality.
That's absolutely 100% agree. That's just fucking tedious, first off.
Yeah, that's tedious as all hell, but fuck, that would be hilarious.
Yeah, it would be kind of
like,
funny.
Imagine if your party starts out in jail.
Right.
You know? And then they try to break out, and then they're just in a cube of Wall of Force at level 1.
Just, okay.
And then, dude, they have shackles on their hands,
yeah,
and they're fucking sovereign glued onto their arms. No, fuck you.
Right. that like for like so obviously it's tedious, but also like you're just like, come on.
Yeah, now you're just good. Yeah, now you're not. Now it's not fun.
No, exactly. You're just making it so it's like, oh, fuck you, I thought of this. And it's like, all right, man, you don't need to one-up every player that's trying to do something, you know? Like, you let them have a little bit of freedom here. Not everybody's gonna go, yeah, fuck it, teleportation bad, right? Like, no, come on.
Now, I would be okay with having a particular room in a place like that be anti-teleportation, like the treasure room.
Well, I can see it being like maybe a city, like one capital city does not like magic, so no teleportation, right? Like they've made it. They use magic only to prevent magic, right?
Yes.
Like that's what they do, right? But going every single city goes no, stop.
Yeah, no, fuck magic, fuck you.
It's like, all right, well, I guess
unless
we don't
there's
wanna...
some kind of like a magical inquisition.
That could be cool, but that would be something that's not like active all the time, I would assume, right?
Yeah.
You could do some underground magic shit. Hey. But you know, it's
I just get so much comedy out of the images of that.
Right. Yeah.
People do make mistakes when they design their dungeons as well. So this idea that the world is perfectly formed is not actually indicative of the way reality is, because if you look at many real-world castles, many real-world environments, these were places that over the course of their years were renovated many times over.
And on this path, this also means that you have to kind of blend those two elements of the illogical and magical fantasy nature of your world with the logic through line that you want to use. Keep in mind the resources available. Not every town has high-level druids and wizards who can make that town prosper. Some towns are pretty poor and might not have any walls, or a very small group of guards, or can be easily infiltrated or destroyed by a stone giant. And that's a big problem for them. Not every castle is going to have magical wards and secret entrances. Some of them might have just been built by men who are trying to build a castle to protect their land as best they can. Or perhaps if you look at your dungeon as being designed by a beholder, or it is a dungeon built by giants, then what does that mean for that dungeon? And what does the design possibly look like? And maybe they're too busy worrying about themselves to worry about what a humanoid might be able to do when they encounter their dungeon.
That's a good point.
That is fair. Like if you actually look into is it Mordenkainen's?
It's Volos.
Volos, yeah, you know.
Yep.
Yeah,
I know.
I
saw that.
Yeah, they have some pretty good stuff for beholders.
They have a whole, basically like half of Volos is looking into the biology and the living situation, I guess, I can't think of the word, of different kinds of monsters, and one of them is beholders. And it shows a map of a dungeon that was excavated by a beholder, because what beholders do, they actually say it in the book, beholders that are powerful enough have a disintegration ray eye, and they use that to disintegrate material. And they use that ray and they just dig tunnels by disintegrating shit. And it's awesome. And there's a lot of, since they can float and fly, there's a lot of verticality to beholder dungeons.
Super cool.
It's really cool.
And there's like, you know, they keep a lot of slaves and stuff and have them do things for them inside of there, but they make it so that their place is nigh inaccessible. Like where they are, where they live, nigh inaccessible, because they are so fucking paranoid.
Yes.
God,
it's always so weird how fucking paranoid they are.
I love that though about beholders. They're so fun. Just because it's like, even when they go to sleep, their paranoia can spawn another beholder that might kill them.
Yeah.
It's so great.
I feel bad for beholders. Like, geez,
they never should have come here, you know.
It's true, they are outsiders.
Yeah, they're not from here. They should go.
Well, that just seems xenophobic.
True. Won't deny.
Xenophobic to the floating eyeball with more eyes.
That has a disintegration ray and enslaves you. You know.
Yeah.
Whatever.
But, man, nature versus nurture, dude.
Right, true.
If you found a fucking baby beholder and you just comfort it, maybe he'd be a nice guy. I can't even get into
No, that's
sentence.
the thing. There are the little ones you can get as familiars, if you remember. What are they called? Fuck. I don't remember what they're called.
Wait, sorry. I wasn't. What was it?
There are little tiny beholder things, beholderkin, that are they can be used as familiars. They can actually happen.
Mind witness?
Maybe. I don't remember what it is.
That's a mind flayer. That's a mind flayer beholder.
Right, yeah, that's the bad one. Hold on. Tiny.
Yeah, fuck. It's in Volos.
Yes, it is. Beholder. What is it?
Yeah.
Gazer.
Gazer.
A gazer. They're tiny and they're unintelligent, but they're beholderkin and they can be your little pet. It's great.
Yeah. Do they have rays?
I don't think they have.
They don't have
know.
any eye abilities because that'd be
don't think
pretty
so.
fucking broken if you had a familiar that had anti-magic code. Just
They can-
constantly.
Yeah, they can do a little bit of. They have 4 eye stalks that can do Cause Fear, Daze, Mage Hand, and Ray of Frost.
Damn.
Yeah.
I
So
take
they-
it that's like a high level familiar that you can't
Oh
really
yeah, you
start
don't
with.
get that right off the bat. Oh no
Yeah.
no. But anyway, yeah. So they're great.
You know, it'd be really funny now that I think about it.
Uh.
It'd be really funny to have a campaign where all the characters
Yeah.
are a party's summons.
That would be cool.
So you're playing as the gazer, the familiar. You're playing as the druid's wolf.
Right.
You're playing as the wizard familiar. You
That'd
know,
be pretty cool, actually.
you're playing as a retainer for a fighter. That'd be hilarious.
Dude, that makes me think of like that Pokemon episode where they all just hung out and were together. If you remember that, like in the anime,
And the one where it was like focused all on the Pokemon,
only on
right?
the Pokemon, yeah.
And they
yeah,
were
yeah.
like in that weird park. Where there was just
Yes.
lots of. Yeah, I remember that shit
Dude,
now.
yeah. Oh man, it was great. And then they like all of Ash's came together, and Brock's and Missy's came together with Ekans and Coughing, and they just hung out and they helped each other for a while. Oh man.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Anyway.
Non sequitur. I'll tell Xanathar you said that. No, Xanathar's fine. He's cool. Don't worry about him. Yeah, he can stay.
Yeah, he can stay. He's fine.
Yeah, he's fine. He doesn't.
He made a book. That's
Yeah,
pretty
he made a
good.
book. He's fine.
Yeah.
Together, it really is about balance, both in how you design your environments for your players to experience them, and in how you think about how your dungeon fits within the rest of the world. We think about these things a lot now when we create our dungeons and environments because we like to create places that feel like they are living, that they are breathing, that they are alive and inhabited. Because that gives our players so many ways to engage with it in ways that even us as dungeon masters weren't expecting.
So this has been our 5 dungeon design mistakes in Dungeons and Dragons.
Man, that's
5th
only
edition.
5 of them. It's
Tell us
30
about some
fucking
of
minutes.
The design mistakes that you have made or learned from in the comments below.
The videos that we make on our channel are made possible.
Okay, yeah, no, that's
Yeah. Fucking good video.
yeah.
Shit.
The only contention I had was when they were talking about theater of the mind, and they got theater of the mind wrong.
Oh?
Yeah, they were talking about how it helps, or sorry, it promotes that 2D thinking instead of 3D thinking of creating dungeons, in which I was like, what the fuck do you mean? You're thinking
Yeah,
about
what the hell does that even mean?
right, it like, and I, from what they were saying before, it was like, when you're making a dungeon on like a piece of paper, you think about it more in a 2D sense. And I'm like, okay, yeah, fair.
Fair enough.
But then they started talking about that, and it also does that a bit. And I was like, no. I'm describing to you the house, how high it is, all that shit, what you're seeing, what you think about. Like, it is in 3D in your brain. I don't think that's what you mean. I don't know why you're talking about that. But that was my only contention. Like,
Yeah.
it was
I guess
a
if
small
you're looking
part.
at a map and then you're describing it that way, it's kind of hard to
Well,
remove the 2D
that's the thing.
aspect, but
Well, that's
still.
what I was talking about. That's not even theater of the mind. You're using your map. The
Yeah,
way
exactly.
the way the theater of the mind works, you don't use shit, right? You just use your mind.
Man, I don't know, man. Ever since we started playing Devils and Dice, like I can't really do as much theater of the mind when it comes to certain stuff. I
That's
really
fair.
like to have shit drawn out.
Yeah, no, I do too.
The fucking house
Mhm.
that you guys have with Mex near, like, man, it's so much easier for me to really narrate and talk about it.
That
when
is
I
fair.
Can actually see it, you know?
Yeah, no,
People
having
that
things
can
is
do
really...
like 100% theater of the mind, that's incredible. I can't do that.
Yeah, I agree. I agree 100%. I agree 100%.
Because I need some sort of visual aid.
Well, that'll do it for us for today.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
Sorry I was so late.
No, you're good. The video made it go 3 hours. Hell yeah.
Jesus.
Good stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, hey, thanks to everybody for coming by, hanging out. Those of you who stayed around, appreciate it. Hope you enjoyed. And yeah, so thank you to our patrons again. That is, it's not on the screen. There we go. That is Draco Kraken, Mog Zero, Slazer, Steely, Drake Cross, Chris, Frozen Spaghetti, Kill Chrono, and Polyhedral. Appreciate you, and hope you enjoy. It was awesome actually making it tonight. Yeah, good to have you, Brent.
Yeah, it was
good to have you.
You had acceptable things to sit down. It was good shit.
Yeah, no. Everybody was having some good shit when they were talking in chat. It was great. I thought that comment on Theater of the Mind was that if you were using it, if you're used to working on dungeons in tools or on graph paper, you do the same thing in Theater of the Mind because you're used to it. Maybe? If that was the comment, then maybe. Like, I could see that if you just translate it 1-to-1. But I don't know, man. When you say Theater of the Mind to me, it does not mean the same thing. It does not mean that at all. So
it's just a difference in terminology.
Sure, yeah. If that's the case, though, then I guess. But anyway, yeah. You can. Your praise is well appreciated.
Well, now I feel bad.
So yeah, if you want to catch the podcast live, it's on Tuesdays at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Convert that as you will, and then again.
Sorry.
Oh yeah, see ya. And then again at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Fridays, and again as an audio-only version on your podcasting service of choice on Mondays around noon Eastern Standard Time. Devils and Dice, when it's up, is on Wednesdays at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And other than that, check the links, subscribe if you're new, all that fucking stuff that I talked about before. But yeah, that'll do it for us for today. Thanks everybody.
Yeah, thanks for coming. Thanks for shooting the shit.
Yeah.
That shit deserved to be shot.
True. We'll see you next week.
That's gonna get taken out of context.
Yup. Goodbye, everyone.